It's all in the kicks. Jack Burton was never meant to be contained by just one movie. His swagger, his wild one-liners, and his larger-than-life antics were too big for the silver screen alone. The legend demanded more, so boom, studios teamed up with none other than John Carpenter himself to unleash Jack's next chapter in the world of comics, and it exploded like dynamite. Cult fans and new readers alike were hooked. These weren't just new stories, they were new myths. And today, we're diving deep into the insane, over-the-top, no-holds-barred adventures of Jack Burton. Trust me, you won't get a moment to breathe. This ride is packed with adrenaline, brute force, sheer testosterone, and unfiltered manliness. In one word, it's full of Jack Burton. So buckle up, hit that like button and subscribe, because Gizzas, you're about to witness the next legend of the Pork Chop Express, and it's gonna hit you like a truck. The continuing adventures of Jack Burton and the Pork Chop Express. Chapter 1. On a stormy night in 1986, Jack Burton cruised down the highway in his rig, the Pork Chop Express, giving his usual bravado-filled monologue. He warned listeners about facing the chaos of life head-on, just like he did. But his speech was interrupted when a monstrous ape-like creature latched onto his truck. Before he could react, the beast broke into the cab and attacked him. Jack screamed and fought to keep control, eventually slamming the brakes and skidding to a halt on the rain-soaked road. Jumping out, Jack confronted the beast, suspecting it to be one of Lo Pan's demonic servants. Lo Pan being the Chinatown boss Jack had defeated. The creature, enormous and snarling, lunged, but Jack stood his ground, boasting that he'd dealt with worse back in Kentucky. He tried a flying kick, but ended up landing flat on his back. The creature hovered over him, sniffed, and unexpectedly licked his face. Jack, terrified and confused, blurted out a crude joke, then noticed the beast had a much gentler demeanor than expected. Eventually, Jack invited the creature, now nicknamed Pete, into his truck. He figured Pete would be shot on sight by highway patrol if left behind. As they drove off, Jack warned Pete about his friends Wang and Egg, joking that one might turn him into a Chinese aphrodisiac. Pete howled in response and began chewing on the upholstery, prompting Jack to shout, "That's premium suede!" With the storm still raging outside, Jack and his new monstrous companion rolled down the midnight highway together. Jack Burton and Pete arrived in Chinatown, San Francisco. Pete, now wearing sunglasses and a t-shirt from a truck stop, followed Jack through the streets. Jack joked about the utility of truck stops while telling Pete to behave and not draw attention. At Wang Chi's wedding, Jack barged in looking for help, yelling for Wang and drawing stares. Egg Shen spotted him, unimpressed. Jack explained that Pete had hitched a ride and now wouldn't leave him alone. Egg immediately identified Pete as a demon, bonded to Jack when he killed Lo Pan. That bond, Egg explained, would only transfer if Jack died, and until then, Pete would follow him everywhere, even through the worst pits of hell. Panicked, Jack refused to accept it. He insisted he couldn't travel with a demon and demanded Egg fix it. Meanwhile, Pete began helping himself to the wedding buffet. Jack shouted at him to stop. Egg repeated how serious the bond was, saying Pete was stuck to Jack worse than herpes. Jack tried to reason with Pete, saying life on the road wasn't for him. Wang walked in and scolded Jack for bringing a demon to a wedding. As the ceremony began, Wang handed Jack a drink. Jack, stressed, asked for 7 more. At the reception, Jack sarcastically complained to the guests about being eternally stuck with a deranged orangutan, while others enjoyed wedded bliss. He told Pete that their situation reminded him of his second marriage. Jack recalled marrying a woman he met at his cousin Cecil's wedding in Nebraska. It was a rushed union, spurred by too much beer and a broom closet rendezvous. He reminisced about how it ended up in court, leading to a chaotic reception involving masked wrestlers, demonic creatures, and a gang of Mexican bikers. Jack continued recounting his second marriage, revealing it had been a trap. There was no baby, just a ploy to rope him in. Her father turned out to be a death cult leader trying to resurrect a Babylonian demigod. Things got messy fast. Jack clashed with the old man, the cult, and a taco truck, and claimed he accidentally started a fire during the chaos. He managed to escape and considered it for the best. Back at the wedding, Jack sipped a drink beside Pete, commenting that all marriages end in tears. His comment was met with silence and side eyes from the wedding guests. Before he could explain himself, a masked swordsman crashed through the window. Jack shouted, "What?" as chaos erupted. The intruders were the Wing Kong. One of them accused Wang Chi of murdering their master and declared vengeance. Wang shouted for everyone to run as the attackers stormed the hall. Guests panicked while Wing Kong drew weapons and charged. One guest was struck down with a staff. Wang retaliated with a flying kick. Meanwhile, Jack and Pete stood cornered by the gang. Jack hesitated, then ordered Pete to attack. Pete exploded into a frenzy, tearing through the attackers. Jack prepared to fight, but was faced by a charging swordsman. Egg Shen stepped in, zapped the attacker with lightning, and blasted him across the room. Jack cheered, "Aha!" as the battle picked up momentum. Egg warned Jack about the seriousness of the situation, while Jack tried to maintain bravado. More attackers poured in as Jack and Pete braced for the next wave, the fight spilling across the wedding hall in a storm of blades, fists, and chaos. Jack and Egg Shen stood ready as lightning crackled through the hall. Egg revealed the Wing Kong had come to avenge Lo Pan. Jack, sarcastic, asked what gave it away. Suddenly, a sorcerer in ornate armor appeared, declaring vengeance for his disgraced master. Egg identified him as Chang Wu, a powerful warrior sorcerer loyal to Lo Pan. Jack was stunned to learn Wu had been presumed dead. Egg tried to banish Wu with magical stones, but the sorcerer struck back with a massive energy blast. Wu seized Wang's bride and announced she should have honored Lo Pan by dying for him. Wang attacked, shouting for her to be left alone, but Wu easily captured him mid-air. Jack warned Wu not to push his buttons, while Wu mocked him and focused his rage on Wang. Jack taunted Wu with a pun about having Wang on the mind, earning a glare. Wu proclaimed that to save Wang, Jack must retrieve the spirits of the three storms, thunder, rain, and lightning, sealed in jars located at the end of the Black Road in the Hell of the Seven-Faced Widow. They had 3 days. Egg, stunned, said even he barely survived the Black Road. Jack, undeterred, declared his signature phrase. He introduced himself boldly and said when an 8-foot-tall warlock challenges you with an impossible task, you stare him down and accept. Jack ended with confidence, saying, "Challenge accepted." Chapter 2. Jack boldly accepted the challenge from Chang Wu, despite the sorcerer's warning that the Midnight Road was too perilous. Wu mocked Jack's arrogance and advised him to flee while he could, claiming Wang Chi's soul was already his. But Jack, unshaken, treated it like a simple trade, retrieving jars in exchange for his friend's safety. Chang Wu erupted in rage as Jack continued mocking him, comparing Wu's mystical experiences to a cigar-smoking pig riding a unicycle. Wu declared Jack an idiot and vowed long, excruciating revenge. Jack, alongside Egg Shen, tried to keep the conversation on track, questioning the value of the jars. Egg chimed in, demanding to know what was really in it for Wu. Wu revealed the jars contained the tormented souls of the three storms, cursed and trapped in the Hell of the Seven-Faced Widow by dark magic. He wanted their souls retrieved to bring them peace, or else Wang would die. Wu gave them 3 days and disappeared with Wang in a storm of green energy. Miao Yin begged Jack to save him. Jack promised her he would. As chaos settled, Jack asked Egg how to reach the Black Road. Egg said they'd need supplies first. They gathered their gear and loaded up the Pork Chop Express. Egg, now wearing a conical straw hat and mystic beads, directed Jack through Chinatown. Jack argued the alley ahead was a dead end, but Egg insisted he turn. The truck entered a tight corner and Jack expressed his doubts. Egg told him this is China, explaining maps and borders were meaningless where they were headed. Egg drew glowing runes on the wall, opening a portal. Jack was stunned, asking how he did it. Egg explained the spiritual and mortal worlds were deeply entangled. He ordered Jack to drive. Jack sighed, then hit the gas. Jack and Egg drove the Pork Chop Express through a dark, rocky ravine. Jack wondered why it suddenly got dark, but Egg told him not to ask questions. When Jack pointed out they were under stars now, Egg confirmed they were on the Midnight Road. After travelling 150 miles, they arrived at a desolate village. Jack asked a local woman for directions to the house of the Seven-Faced Widow, but she shouted a warning in a foreign language. Jack complained that Egg didn't even know where they were going. Egg explained maps were useless here since the widow moved her house. Pete cracked a joke, and Jack sarcastically suggested they search trailer parks. They finally reached a grotesque red temple. Egg told Jack and Pete to stay in the truck and warned them not to speak to anyone. Jack joked he hoped Pete would get get lost. Egg entered the temple and greeted the inhabitants, identifying himself as a traveler seeking direction. Outside, Jack monologued about his nightmare situation just before a strange bald man atop a massive turtle demon asked, "Who the hell is Jack Burton?" Jack introduced himself and asked who the man was. The stranger insulted Jack's truck, prompting Jack to fire back. Pete and the stranger bantered about ugliness, and Jack admitted Pete wasn't exactly his choice of companion. The man on the turtle assumed Jack was powerful if he had a demon servant. Jack, puffing himself up, asked who the man was. The stranger invited him to hear an old story and launched into a tale of chaos, creation, and sacrifice. Jack asked if they had food nearby, and the man explained that everything serves a purpose, though fulfilling that purpose might also bring doom. Jack said it reminded him of his third wife, then drifted into a story about her, an exotic dancer from Pittsburgh with unforgettable legs and a killer backside. Jack narrated his past with a woman obsessed with purpose and terrified of aging. She'd left him for a crowd of goth misfits claiming to offer her a better future, though Jack never saw the appeal. He described them as vampire wannabe art students. Eventually, she returned to him, wild-eyed and desperate. Jack claimed women never really forget him, and soon they were tangled up again. She begged him for one last night together. They spent the night, but by morning, Jack slipped out, repeating his philosophy. Better to leave 'em wanting more. But this time, she wasn't done. As he looked away, she turned monstrous. But then, Jack opened the curtains and sunlight turned her to ashes. Jack was left baffled as to where she went. Back in the present, chaos erupted. Egg yelled for Jack to run as monstrous beings attacked them for stealing their pickled eggs. Jack realized they were in trouble and told Egg to flee, but the turtle demon had already vanished. Egg sprinted toward Jack and Pete, arms full of stolen eggs. The bizarre attackers were relentless, forcing Jack into a fight. One shouted, "You die!" while Jack quipped, "It's all in the reflexes." He dodged a strike and fought back, but was overwhelmed. Pete barreled in with a furious roar, tossing enemies aside. As Jack called out for Pete, Egg ordered them back into the truck. With enemies flying from a blue explosion behind them, they sped off. Inside the cab, Jack mocked Egg's rule about avoiding locals. Pete slurped from a cup, and Jack made a pun about Egg stealing eggs. Pete chuckled approvingly, tongue hanging out. Egg announced they were near their destination, the Widow's Cross Road. Jack replied, "Sounds peachy," as the truck rumbled on through the eerie wasteland. Jack, Egg, and Pete reached a barren stretch of the midnight road and found an old woman tied to a tree. Jack questioned if that was normal, while Egg tried intimidating her for directions to the house of the seven-faced widow. Jack took over with a charm offensive, but the woman screamed and clawed him. Jack shouted for Egg to stop her as she threatened eternal torment. Egg counter-threatened with fire and demon stomachs. The woman gave in when Egg raised a glowing stone, declaring that only a fool could find the widow's house. Egg turned the decision over to Jack, who was confused by being labelled the fool. Pressed to choose between left or right, Jack grew frustrated. Pete sniffed the ground unhelpfully. Jack insisted he wasn't a fool, but under pressure, Egg finally chose left. Meanwhile, a group of angry, monstrous locals spotted their truck and vowed revenge for stealing their salted duck eggs. They leapt into pursuit as Jack's group continued down a twisted path past grotesque statues. Jack noted how much weirder things were getting. Inside the truck, Egg reminded them they'd left reality far behind. Jack complained about Pete's breath. Egg suddenly told them to stop. They had reached an enormous towering figure with 6 eerie faces and twin blades. The monstrous statue loomed in the night like a cosmic sentinel. Jack stared up and said, "We've found her doorstep." Chapter 3. Jack, Egg, and Pete finally reached the massive stone structure guarded by a statue with 7 heads, the doorstep of the house of the seven-faced widow. Jack, confused by the grammar of addressing a multi-faced woman, tried to lighten the moment. Inside, Egg warned him not to underestimate the widow's power. She could see the past, present, and future, and often drove people mad. Jack quipped he'd dated women like that, while Pete behaved inappropriately, scratching a statue. As they ventured deeper past towering statues of the seven-faced widow, their enemies, the monkey-like warriors, tracked their truck and recognized it. One of them suggested defiling it, but another insisted on vengeance with blood first. Though tempted, they agreed not to enter the widow's domain out of fear and chose to wait outside. Inside, Jack, Pete, and Egg wandered through a bizarre maze filled with caged creatures and twisted architecture. Jack muttered that it was the weirdest place he'd ever been. Egg emphasized the importance of not getting lost, while Jack tried to make sense of the mystical setup. They passed more statues of the widow, and Jack joked about one face reminding him of someone. That someone turned out to be his fourth ex-wife, a supposed psychic who was really running a scam. Flashbacks revealed her as a seductive fortune teller working a crowd of suckers. Jack, smitten and naive at the time, had fallen for her hard. He reflected on how Latin women always rang his bell. He remembered his ex-wife's hypnotic gaze, red spirals glowing from her eyes. Jack, still under the memory's sway, recalled how he married his psychic ex-wife in a modest ceremony in Mexico. She was mesmerizing. He'd do anything for her, and did. Under her spell, he dug up bones, scrubbed them, and even crafted creepy centerpieces from them. Meanwhile, she ran a fortune-telling scam for cash. Jack didn't question it. He thought, what could it hurt? As things escalated, Jack realized the relationship was one-sided. He was made to kill his wife's clients who came to her for fortune-telling. He realized that he wasn't made to be caged. So, he bolted, even as angry locals stormed the tent and killed his witch wife. He left behind a fire and the illusion of heartbreak, convinced she'd miss him, but knowing he had to move on. Jack narrated that he let her keep the furniture and emphasized the bright side. Quick Mexican marriage, quick Mexican divorce. Back in the present, Jack wandered deeper into the widow's lair, still ranting to a blob creature about freedom and bad relationships. The blob's head suddenly morphed to look like Egg. It repeated Egg's warning, don't get lost, but Jack mocked him. The blob suddenly turned hostile, lashing out and grabbing Jack. Pete jumped in to save him, biting the blob's face and tearing through it with a squelch. Jack worried Egg might have been replaced, only for Egg to appear, saying he just went to the bathroom. Their search continued with Pete sniffing for a trail. Jack and Egg joked about the smell when a voice summoned them, ominous and theatrical. Egg panicked, warning Jack that the widow would use words to trap and destroy him, but Jack smirked and said proudly, I'm an expert at not listening to anybody. Then the trio threw back the curtain to confront their fate. Jack, Egg and Pete finally came face to face with the true seven-faced widow, who turned out to be a grotesque, fleshy mass with 7 heads, far from the graceful statues that had lined her temple. Shocked, Jack scoffed at the false advertising, calling out the contrast between the alluring statues and the reality before him. Despite Egg's warning, Jack kept mocking her appearance and delusions of grandeur. The widow declared she could see all, past, present and future, but Jack retorted that even with all her sight, she clearly wasn't seeing the truth about herself. Pete tried to soften the tension, but Jack kept pushing. He noticed the 3 jars by her feet and assumed they held the souls of the storms he needed. When he asked what it would take to get them, the widow challenged him with trials. The first was the pool of absolute truth. Jack gazed into it with mild disinterest. While the widow insisted he'd see terrifying omens of death, Jack only saw beer, and a lot of it. He claimed it looked like his future held cool icy beers. The widow, frustrated, moved on to the next challenge, a riddle, but Jack didn't let her finish. With sharp reflexes, he swiped the jars right from under her. Enraged, the widow shouted that she foresaw this, but Jack mocked her again, questioning her foresight. As they fled, Egg added insult by saying her legs weren't fit to catch anyone. The widow hurled a final insult at Egg, revealing she knew he used to be an exotic dancer named Tastikake McSugar. Egg shrugged it off. Everyone already knew. With jars in hand, the trio sprinted out, ignoring the widow's curses and laughing off her final words as they made their daring escape. Jack, Egg, and Pete charged toward a towering gateway, shouting for Lo Pan. Egg stressed they were running out of time to save Wang Chi. As they exited the midnight road, they ran straight into the monkey warriors again, prompting Jack's irritated reaction. He'd had enough of them. The warriors accused them of theft and temple defilement, especially for stealing the salted duck eggs. One monkey gleefully reminded Jack he also peed on his truck. Meanwhile, back in Chinatown, a rat moved stealthily through the shadows, leading the view to Wang Chi, who remained chained in a hidden chamber. Inside the lair, Chang Wu's minions announced that preparations were complete. Chang Wu declared the ceremony would commence once the souls of the 3 storms were retrieved. A disciple expressed concern they might not return, but Chang Wu was confident they would return, as it it had been foreseen. Chang Wu explained it was a fool's errand by design. Only a fool could fulfill it. He approached Wang Qi, who was still gagged and restrained, and mocked his struggle. Chang Wu cruelly told Wang Qi it must be agonizing to believe his friends were saving him, when in reality they were walking right into his trap. Chang Wu smirked as he leaned in and revealed the twist. Wang's friends were not saving him, but ensuring all their deaths. Chapter 4. Jack, Egg and Pete returned to their truck only to be surrounded by the monkey warriors again. Pete mocked them, bragging about having peed on their truck. Jack exploded, warning them about the last guy who tried that, though the tale ended in an oddly positive twist. Radiator repair success. Still, Jack insisted that was beside the point and punched one of the monkeys. A brawl broke out. Jack fought back hard while Pete unleashed chaos, grabbing two monkeys and smashing them together. The warriors screamed as Pete flung them through the air. One remaining monkey, enraged, vowed revenge and hopped onto a goat-like demon mount. He galloped away triumphantly, jar in hand, claiming victory. Jack fired at him with a submachine gun, spraying bullets, wildly missing. The monkey mocked him, vanishing into the distance. Egg sighed, calling Jack a terrible shot, and wondered aloud where that goat had even come from. Egg then delivered bad news. They had only 6 hours left to get the jars back to Chang Wu, or Wang Qi was done for. Jack was stunned to learn 3 days had already passed. They only had 2 of the 3 jars. One had been stolen. Jack suggested filling a pickle jar with dirt to fake it, but Egg was adamant. It had to be all 3. As they hit the road again, Egg spotted the thief riding off. Jack floored the truck and Pete leapt out, tackling the rider off the goat. The monkey screamed for the demon to be removed before it ate his face. Jack charged in, demanding the jar back, with Egg and Pete flanking him. Jack forced the monkey warrior to hand over the final jar. Then the trio bolted in the pork chop express. The monkey dropped to his knees, vowing to sing songs of Jack's mercy and the demon that spared his face. Meanwhile, in Chinatown, Chang Wu sat on his throne and was told everything was ready. He could feel the spirits of his brothers approaching and ordered Wang's throat to be slit the moment the jars were delivered. As Jack's crew arrived, they regrouped in the shop, where Jack confidently claimed he'd handle negotiations. Pete handed over the jars while Jack joked that all Chang Wu wanted were some jars. Mia corrected him and insisted on coming, refusing to leave Wang behind. Egg allowed it, and the group prepared for confrontation. Outside Wing Kong Trading Company, Jack tried to rally the team with a poker analogy. Some were confused, but Egg redirected them to stick to the plan and watch for the signal if things went south. Jack then knocked on the gate, demanding entry with a special delivery for Chang Wu. Inside, Chang Wu praised Jack for surviving the midnight road. Jack replied the journey wasn't as wild as Cleveland at 1 a.m. He demanded Wang's release, placing the jars before Chang. The sorcerer told him to wait. Jack, annoyed, quipped that they didn't come to socialize, they came for Wang. Jack told Chang Wu they were there for Wang, prompting the sorcerer to sarcastically mock Jack's wording, much to Pete's amusement. Jack caught on quickly, irritated by the joke. Pete insisted the gag was his, while Chang Wu remained composed, calling Jack a loyal friend for going to such lengths to rescue Wang. Chang Wu theatrically pulled back a curtain and presented Wang, still bound and suspended. Mia cried out for her husband. Outside, a metallic sound caught the attention of the guards. A group of Wing Kong warriors in red turbans suddenly stormed in, attacking the Changsing guards stationed at the perimeter. Chang Wu gave the order to seize everyone, but Wang, having freed himself, dropped to the floor and took an immediate stance. He called out to Miao Yin before launching himself into the chaos with flying kicks. Egg Shen realized their cover was blown and signaled Jack to call in reinforcements. Chang Wu taunted Egg, claiming the Wing Kong had already subdued the Changsing fighters. Jack countered that they still had Pete. The demon charged into battle, but Chang Wu cast a spell, commanding him to sleep. A cloud of smoke overtook Pete, and he crashed to the ground, unconscious and snoring. Meanwhile, Chang Wu summoned his follower to present the jars. Holding them high, he commanded the release of the souls within. Black mist erupted from the jars as the souls of thunder, rain and lightning were unleashed. The group looked on in shock as the storm spirits materialized, glowing and armed for combat. The 3 warriors, thunder, rain and lightning, stepped out out, faces glowing with energy. With furious cries, they charged forward, fists raised and ready for battle, signaling the beginning of a fierce confrontation Jack and his crew could no longer avoid. The three storms raised their arms, calling forth their master in a ritual of vengeance. As dark energy swirled, Jack looked on, blaming himself for the chaos. He saw Wang reaching for Miao Yin in what felt like their final moment. The sight stirred Jack's own painful memories of his ex-wife, the first Mrs. Jack Burton. As the lovers grasped for one another, Jack reminisced about how she had made him feel worthy, about how their love ended in heartbreak. The flashback deepened. He remembered her collapse at the doorway, the helpless hours beside her hospital bed, and the moment she squeezed his hand before passing. Her goodbye haunted him. Jack recalled the final kiss they shared and declared it would always be the last kiss goodbye. Back in the present, Jack led the group down the hallway as a fiery presence emerged from the ritual circle. Chang Wu raised his arms and cried out, "He comes!" as a dark, imposing silhouette took shape within the flames. Egg Shen asked what to do, but Jack turned to him, equally clueless. Egg advised him to start praying. They were out of options. The summoned figure stepped from the fire, an enraged, grotesque version of Lo Pan. With glowing eyes and clawed hands, he snarled that he had spent what felt like an eternity in hell, a realm of those killed by idiots because of Jack Burton. His voice thundered with fury, making it clear he was back, and Jack was the reason. Chang Wu smiled beside him, pleased at the return of this vengeful force. Jack and his allies now faced the resurrected horror born of their mistakes. Chapter 5. Before, in the twisted corners of hell, Lo Pan found himself shuffled between realms like the oily dragon's lair and the horny dragon's domain, ridiculed and degraded. Others mocked his fate, unable to believe that someone of his former power was condemned to the hell of those killed by idiots. In another pit, chained men laughed at the idea while suffering their own tortures, being devoured by flesh-eating slugs or razors and fire. Everyone in hell seemed to know Lo Pan's shame, spreading the word like wildfire. Meanwhile, in the hell of those killed by idiots, damned souls shared their foolish death stories, getting hit by a stone dropped by a mentally deficient brother, getting shot by a blind dog during a prank gone wrong, and more. Each tale was met with swift punishment from skeletal wardens wielding brutal sticks. One poor soul mentioned Jack Burton's name, revealing he was killed by him. That drew Lo Pan's furious attention. When Lo Pan's name was called, everyone looked confused, until a vicious whack landed on him like the others. Then, enraged, he screamed, "Jack Burton!" Back in Chinatown, 1986, Jack stood, fists clenched, as Lo Pan raged about the humiliation of being sent to hell by fools. Jack shrugged it off with a sarcastic quip. Lo Pan promised slow, painful revenge, beginning with killing Jack's friends. He ordered the Wing Kong to strike, and chaos erupted. But reinforcements arrived. The Chang Sing warriors stormed in, evening the odds. Egg Shen noted it took them long enough. They fought back hard, while Wang confirmed the Wing Kong were manageable without their master's magic. Unfortunately, that magic had returned, and so had Lo Pan. Jack and the others continued battling the Wing Kong forces. Amid the chaos, Jack grumbled that he'd only signed up for drinking and gambling, not black magic and kung fu. He charged into the fight alongside Pete, while Egg Shen and the rest held their ground. Jack ordered Pete to attack Lo Pan again, unaware that Lo Pan had regained full control. Egg warned Jack that Lo Pan was no longer bound to him. Lo Pan commanded Pete to bring him Jack's face. Pete lunged, pinning Jack to the ground. Jack, confused and heartbroken, cried out about their past friendship and antics. Just before Pete could strike, Wang intervened, kicking Pete off. Jack urged Wang to go easy on Pete, insisting Pete was just confused and still his brother. Elsewhere, Lo Pan and Egg Shen faced off again. Lo Pan said it was fated to always come down to them. Egg fired back that he had defeated him before. Lo Pan vowed vengeance for his shame and failure, claiming Miao Yin as his wife and promising to flay Jack alive. Egg Shen, unfazed, boldly declared, "Not today," and launched a counterattack, then vanished in a puff of smoke. Lo Pan mocked Egg's escape theatrics, regrouping with his allies. Rain, thunder and lightning, preparing for the next phase. Meanwhile, Egg Shen led the group through underground tunnels, explaining that Lo Pan was once again a spirit and couldn't be harmed. They had to run and regroup. Back at their hideout, Egg explained that Lo Pan's desire had shifted from love to pure vengeance. As a spirit, he couldn't be defeated unless made flesh again. The only way to stop him would require a sacrifice. At Lo Pan's lair, he addressed his demon army, threatening them with hellish punishments if they failed to capture Jack and Miao Yin. His minions pledged obedience, ready to resume the hunt. At the bar, Jack encouraged Wang to eat the questionable food. Despite Wang's concerns about health code violations, Jack assured him it was good old-fashioned chow. Meanwhile, a greasy man with a dragon tattoo harassed Wang, mistaking him for a woman. As the man groped Wang's disguised form, Wang's eyes widened with fury. Without hesitation, Wang launched into action, delivering a swift and powerful kick to the man's face, sending him crashing backwards. Jack looked on, startled but impressed. One of the gang members realized Wang wasn't a woman and shouted in rage. He charged, threatening to fix Wang, but Wang countered with a sharp punch to the jaw, flooring him. With the thug down, Jack stepped in, warning the others not to disrespect a lady, especially one who might be a kung fu expert in disguise. But the thugs identified the man Wang knocked out as their brother, clearly not ready to back down. Jack attempted to defuse the situation with confidence, warning them to leave unless they wanted a repeat performance. Trying cool, Jack called for Wang to show off again, but Wang doubled over in pain, groaning. The chili burrito he'd eaten earlier had caught up with him. Jack rushed to his side as he collapsed, clutching his stomach. Surrounded by angry bikers and realizing his partner was down, Jack awkwardly asked if any of them had an antacid. The gang, unmoved, closed in around him with clenched fists and scowls. The final panel showed Jack sweating slightly, glancing around and asking, "Anybody?" Chapter 6. Miao Yin declared she would never again be a victim. Reflecting on her past kidnapping and enslavement, she vowed to reclaim her strength and honor her warrior father's teachings. With a fierce yell of "never again," she launched into combat. On the Midnight Road, she and her elderly companion were ambushed by fish-headed townsfolk. When one tried to harass her, Miao Yin attacked without hesitation. Egg Shen scolded her for not keeping a low profile, but Miao insisted the vendor made lewd comments. The vendor protested, saying he was just selling honey sweet buns. Miao wasn't convinced and continued her assault, saying that the old man wanted to put honey on her buns. She demanded to fight everyone. The commotion drew the attention of a massive, muscled, fish-headed brute who criticized Miao's loudness. When he confronted her, she didn't back down. Egg tried to stop her, reminding her they were fugitives from an undead wizard warlord. But Miao was locked in, taunting the brute and trading blows with him. She unleashed a flurry of attacks, kicks, punches and strikes until the giant collapsed. Afterward, she and Egg walked away. She shouted back at the unconscious brute that her buns weren't for his honey. Egg asked if she really would have rather fought fish people at the airport instead of the Lords of Death. Miao admitted she used to be timid and didn't even try out for softball. Egg pointed out her fate had changed everything. Miao speculated Lo Pan would have eventually found another girl with jade eyes, then asked about Gracie Law. Egg assured her Gracie was no longer useful to Lo Pan and revealed she was now in Tibet campaigning for livestock rights. In Tibet, Gracie confronted yak herders, threatening negative press if they didn't inoculate their animals. Meanwhile, the giant floating eyeball monster continued tracking Miao Yin and her companion from the shadows. Somewhere on the road, Jack stood between Wang, still reeling from the chili burrito, and a gang of bikers, trying to calm the tension with a speech about American unity. He appealed to their shared heritage, trying to stop the fight. One of the bikers challenged him, but another recognized Jack as someone they'd met before, recalling a bizarre incident in Cincinnati. Diffused some tension, though one biker still complained about getting kicked. Their leader, Prez, told him to sit down and keep quiet. Jack then learned from Prez that the Lords of Death were hunting him. Wang continued to suffer from stomach pain. Prez offered him a drink called a slingshot to help. Wang drank it and promptly threw up. Prez told Jack about the Zhang brothers, dangerous men who made infamous killers look tame. One of them had made briefs from a woman's skin for damaging his suit. The other brother was even worse. At a diner a day ago, the Zhangs approached a man they believed to be Jack Burton. The man, Steve Terwilliger, snapped back. One Jang pulled a knife, but the other reminded him that Lo Pan wanted Jack alive. Steve was killed anyway. Several others nearby were also slaughtered just for not being Jack. Back at a booth, Jack, Wang, and Press talked over beers. Press warned that every thug from here to Tampa would be looking for Jack. Jack stayed hopeful, thinking they'd outrun them and make it to the Gulf. When asked about a route, Jack said he'd take the old boot-nail highway. Prez immediately warned against it, calling it cursed. Jack mocked the idea, but Prez insisted, saying there'd been a UFO crash there in the 50s. Jack laughed it off, but the unease lingered. As Jack, Wang, and Prez sat in the booth, Jack jokingly called Prez crazy for his wild stories about Elvis being Bigfoot, but added he wouldn't risk getting his head taken off by saying it too loud. Prez corrected him, claiming he never said Elvis was Bigfoot, just that Elvis was shot into space by the feds and still orbited the Earth. Jack turned to Wang sarcastically, calling Prez a beacon of rational thought. Prez then shared a bizarre tale of the Big Eye, a monstrous alien with a cowboy hat who disguised itself in human clothes and roamed Bootnail Highway. According to him, the alien was eventually shot dead by the government with a bazooka after wreaking havoc with a ray gun. He warned the others never to pick up a hitchhiker dressed like Hank Williams. Jack and Wang humoured him while finishing their beers. As they left the bar, Jack thanked Press, who shouted that next time Jack would be buying. Elsewhere, Press exited a building with two gang members. They spotted the Jang brothers approaching, asking for Jack Burton. Prez refused to cooperate and was about to insult them, but they all were brutally slaughtered. Later, inside the same building, the Jangs stepped over the pile of bodies of Press and his bikers. One of them remarked that the targets couldn't have gone far. Meanwhile, Jack and Wang camped beside the road, debating the risks of camping versus hotels and the validity of ghost stories. Jack teased Wang about being afraid, but Wang countered that someone who had witnessed the lifeblood of the earth should be more open-minded. From the darkness, the Jang brothers watched them. One asked about the bag, the other responded it was for Burton. Realizing he wouldn't fit with legs, they prepared to behead him. The monstrous cyclopean beast towered over the Jang brothers, roaring as it lunged toward them. The sheer force of its bellow made the suited killers scream in terror. Its grotesque features, massive claws, bulging muscles, and a cracked, bloodshot eye loomed inches away from their faces. The creature roared again as Jack and Wang, still sitting by the fire nearby, reacted to the distant sound. Jack sat upright, startled. Wang, unfazed, echoed the creature's cry with a smirk. Back near the truck, the silhouette of the beast's form cast a disturbing contrast against the night sky. The brothers, visibly shaken, questioned the noise, with one dismissing it with a casual while they stood over a fresh pile of mutilated corpses. A sarcastic caption read, "Probably a coyote," while the ground cracked and erupted behind them. Both Jang brothers turned in panic as jagged chunks of the earth split open, their expressions frozen in horror as something far worse began to emerge from below. The danger was escalating fast, and this time it wasn't Jack or Wang who had the upper hand. Chapter 7. On the midnight road, Miao Yin and Egg Shen walked beneath the looming shadow of a massive dragon as she recounted a tale about a warrior who sacrificed himself to face countless hells for love and his village. Miao Yin expressed discomfort with such stories, saying she didn't like when heroes left their loved ones behind. Egg Shen replied that a true hero sets aside personal well-being for others. Miao Yin questioned why heroes always had to die, and Egg responded that tragedy never bored people. As they moved deeper into the path, a hooded figure appeared ahead. Before they could react, the figure launched a sudden attack, sweeping them off their feet with a staff. Egg fought back with a kick, and Meow tried to defend herself but was knocked down. Egg's attempt to protect her triggered a burst of mystical energy, shouting for the figure to leave her be. The attack ended with smoke and both collapsing. When they came to, Egg reassured Meow that he was there. The hooded figure stood before them and ominously declared he knew where they were. Pulling hoods over their heads, he revealed they were now prisoners. As the figure addressed Egg by name, a grotesque creature emerged. A massive being with 7 grotesque scowling faces embedded in its body. The creature mocked Egg, calling him wizard and saying it wasn't easily humiliated. It added that it knew someone who was looking for Egg Shen. Meanwhile, in Tennessee, Jack Burton's rig barreled down the highway under the cover of night, unaware of the monstrous disastrous developments occurring elsewhere. Jack updated the Pork Chop Express listeners, bragging about heading down to Dixieland, where the beer was cold and the women were hotter than the weather. He made it clear he wasn't backing down from the gang hunting him. He welcomed the challenge. Inside the truck, he assured Wang they had successfully thrown Lo Pan's forces off their trail for now. Wang wondered how long they'd keep running to protect Miao Yin. Jack urged him to trust Egg Shen's plan and joked about drowning their troubles in Nashville's honky-tonks. Wang mentioned he'd never been to the South and heard it could be racist. Jack acknowledged the ignorance but praised the food: fried chicken, biscuits, banana pudding, and told Wang to wear a trucker hat and spit a lot to blend in. In Nashville, they headed to eat, with Jack hyping up the food. At the diner, Little Sue served them catfish, and Bert insisted on piling more peas onto Jack's already full plate. Just as they finished, they stepped outside and found themselves surrounded by muscle cars and bikers, members of the Lords of Death. Jack identified the cars as Trans Ams and told Wang to stay calm because he had things under control. Before Jack could finish his bluff, one of the gang punched him hard, and they revealed Lo Pan had placed a bounty on both of them. A fight erupted immediately. Jack and Wang fought back, but were overwhelmed. One of the bikers pulled a chain around Jack's neck, while another drew a switchblade and charged. A massive figure emerged, Chitty, who smashed the attacker and yelled, "More peas! More peas!" Jack cheered him on from a distance, proud of his unexpected ally turning the tide of battle. Bert unleashed chaos, tossing gang members aside like ragdolls. His fierce rampage stunned the onlookers until a group of armed southern locals noticed and misinterpreted the fight. Mistaking Jack and Wang for the aggressors, they rallied under a wave of patriotic indignation and charged into the brawl, escalating the chaos further. Just as the dust swirled, Little Sue stormed out and scolded Bert, her commanding tone instantly disarming him. Confused and sheepish, Bert tried to explain with a single word, "Peas?" She berated him for leaving the house and joining a street fight, dragging him away with his frying pan still in hand. As Jack called out, Bert hesitated, but Sue's glare sent him walking. The chaos was cut short by the thunderous blast of a shotgun. A group of Southern law officers arrived, demanding order. One sheriff, unimpressed by the melee, challenged the crowd. Wang spat to maintain his disguise, prompting the sheriff to declare the only fair way to settle this mess was through Southern justice, a hog pit brawl. Both sides were told to choose a champion. The gang picked Black Knife, a towering brute. On the other side, Jack was chosen for his elegant coif, a hairstyle fit for a hero. Before he could protest, Jack was thrown into the pit. Covered in muck, he tried to reason with Black Knife, who responded with a roar. Jack dodged a crushing blow, then spotted a sharp tool buried in the mud. Timing it just right, he sidestepped and let Black Knife impale himself on it. The crowd winced in disgust. Jack stood tall, shrugged, and simply said, "It's all in the reflexes," and a Black Knife died in the hog pit. The gang fell into disarray. One punk despaired over having no leader, but another held up a Blood Sabbath album cover, claiming it had prophesied the arrival of a new leader, someone who would overthrow the old and guide them to victory fueled by beer. The crowd of thugs cheered, rallying behind Jack. The sheriff declared the matter settled and praised Jack as the gang's new undisputed leader. However, she warned him never to return to her jurisdiction with that haircut. As they left the pit, Jack asked about Black Knife's body. The sheriff reassured him the pigs would clean it up. One horrified bystander realized he had eaten some of the pork earlier. Back in the pit, the gang bowed to Jack, calling him "great dude." Wang sarcastically pointed out Jack was now the leader of a murderous gang of kidnapping thugs and asked what they'd do next. Jack raised his fist and addressed the gang, declaring it was time to return to Chinatown and give Lo Pan the business end of something he called payback. Wang stood beside him, looking uncertain as Jack rallied the gang behind him. Chapter 8. Lo Pan sat on his throne, amused as the robed emissary presented Egg Shen and Miao Yin as a gift from the seven-faced widow. The emissary relayed the widow's request to kill Jack Burton swiftly in vengeance for her humiliation. Lo Pan promised to send Burton's tongue as a token, confident he would be found. One of Lo Pan's sycophants praised his return from death, while Egg Shen mocked the flattery. Egg warned Lo Pan he'd meet a wicked end, but Lo Pan dismissed his threats, mocking the limits of mortal local allies and peasant magic. Lo Pan turned his attention to Miao Yin, complimenting her beauty and declaring her his bride. Miao Yin shot back, calling him repulsive. He argued they were destined to be together, and only she and a brash blonde man could break his curse. With Burton out of the picture, he believed her presence alone would win back the favour of his demon master, Qing Dai. Miao Yin firmly refused, declaring her love for Wang Qi. Lo Pan, unfazed, used his magic to enchant her, prompting a false declaration of loyalty from her. He accepted it eagerly and turned his thoughts to Jack Burton's death, believing the sacrifice would earn him mortality. He told Miao Yin he longed for the day he could once again experience the pleasures of the flesh. With Egg Shen still alive, Lo Pan decided the holy man would make a fine sacrificial offering for his master. Egg insulted him again, prompting Lo Pan to explode with rage, shouting that Egg was a turd, a very dead turd. Elsewhere, Jack briefed a group of allies on his plan, charge in guns blazing and make a statement. His men were unimpressed until a smarter strategy was offered, a coordinated, multi-front mystical assault. Just then, news arrived that Egg Shen and Miao Yin had been captured. Jack responded with urgency. They had to move fast. Lo Pan stood before the massive statue of Qing Dai, confronted by Chiang, who mocked his repeated failures. Lo Pan, defiant, declared he wasn't dead yet. Chiang promised that would be fixed soon and seized Egg Shen by the jaw, taunting him as a peasant. Egg Shen retorted it was better to die a peasant than serve a madman. As Chiang expressed disappointment at not killing him himself, Egg flung back insults, warning him that word spreads about his servitude to Lo Pan. Chiang walked away seething, muttering that he hated Egg. Lo Pan presented himself before Qing Dai with false humility, claiming Miao Yin's return as a sign of regained favour. He offered Egg Shen's life in sacrifice to seal his redemption. Just as the sword was about to fall, Jack Burton interrupted with a warning. He dared Lo Pan's men to try hurting his friend, warning it would only piss him off. Lo Pan called for Jack's capture, but Jack, ever brash, proclaimed he never came to an unfair fight without his own gang. His allies burst into the chamber in a dramatic entrance, riding motorcycles, swinging in on ropes and wielding weapons. A chaotic battle erupted. Lo Pan mocked Jack's ragtag force, but reinforcements arrived, including Wang Qi, who wasn't alone. Lo Pan scoffed again, calling the group useless, but Wang rallied their allies. The Changsing warriors stormed in, overwhelming Lo Pan's ceremony. Furious, Lo Pan commanded his soldiers to kill everyone. As the fight broke out, Egg Shen shouted a challenge to Chiang. The two clashed in an epic kung fu battle. The chaos expanded as allies and enemies clashed in a full-scale war. Many heroes were born, and many were lost in this legendary conflict, known as the Showdown and Knife Fight of 1986. Jack faced off with Pete, now hostile again. Jack tried to reason, knowing his friend had no choice. Pete charged with a roar, launching into a feral assault. Before he could strike Jack, he collided with one of the bikers, crushing him mid-charge. Jack apologized quietly, knowing Pete was being used. Meanwhile, Egg Shen and Chiang engaged in a fierce magical duel, lightning crackling around them. Egg, holding his ground, threw insults, calling Chiang a boot-licking booty wiper, which visibly enraged his opponent. As their powers clashed, Chiang was overwhelmed by Egg's magic and flung into a wall. His body shattered, leaving only a pile of bones and armor. Jack rushed to check on Egg, who was exhausted but alive. Egg confirmed everything was going as planned and asked if Jack was ready for his part. Jack, with resolve, answered, "I was born ready." Lo Pan prepared to strike Jack with his cursed blade, meant as a sacrifice to Qing Dai. Jack, smirking, insisted Lo Pan wouldn't go through with it, but he did. The blade plunged through Jack's chest. Lo Pan triumphantly declared his mortality restored, thrilled at the prospect of enjoying life once more. His victory was short-lived. Egg Shen drove a staff through Lo Pan's torso, silencing him with a mocking "sucks to be you." As the chamber shook from a magical explosion, Miao Yin stirred, disoriented. Wang Qi ran to Jack's lifeless body, devastated. Egg explained that Jack had knowingly sacrificed himself to turn Lo Pan mortal again, the only way they could defeat him. Wang, grief-stricken, called Jack his greatest friend. end, but Egg hinted that Jack's story might not be over. In a strange, otherworldly space, Jack heard a voice calling him toward the light. He swam upward, only to be grabbed by skeletal hands and dragged through a watery veil. Gasping for breath, he emerged into a barren, red-hued afterlife. Jack tried to make sense of his surroundings, brushing off the bleakness with typical sarcasm, until Lo Pan reappeared. Still robed and undead, he greeted Jack with a sinister, "Hello, Mr. Burton." Jack, exhausted and incredulous, groaned, "Oh, come on!" realizing his battle with Lo Pan was far from over. Chapter 9. Jack fell through a psychedelic tunnel, lamenting that doing good didn't earn him a reward. He landed in a hellish landscape and groaned at the sight. A grotesque creature welcomed him to the hell of no return, where no one escapes. Jack wasn't impressed. He refused to accept eternity in a pit of pus. The creature reminded him that Wang, Miao Yin, and Egg had risked everything to drag him back. Jack dismissed the creature's claims that Miao Yin was into him, insisting she liked tall guys. Lo Pan, also trapped in this infernal place, reappeared and joined the argument. Jack and Lo Pan bickered over Miao Yin, each denying the other's significance to her. Jack remained sarcastic and defiant, calling out Lo Pan's twisted view of love. When Lo Pan claimed love meant servitude, Jack mocked his ignorance of women's liberation, until a sudden shriek startled them both. They looked up to find hideous flying demon pigs descending. Jack asked what they were, and Lo Pan panicked, calling them demons that would slice them open and make love to their innards. Both screamed and fled in terror. Jack shouted for a plan, but Lo Pan vanished, leaving him to face the creatures alone. Furious, Jack called him a jerk and bolted after him. Back in the mortal realm, Jack's body lay lifeless in front of the Wing Kong exchange. Miao Yin and Wang mourned him. Wang pledged to honor Jack's memory, believing him gone forever, but Egg was already prepared. He rolled in a barrel and shouted for Jack to be preserved quickly. Others were confused. Wang asked if they were pickling Jack, but Egg insisted time was short and not everything was what it seemed. They had a plan, and Jack's story wasn't over yet. Egg and Wang arrived at a Chinatown alley with Jack's barrel. A street vendor tried to sell them a shirt or a fish, but Egg demanded to see Tai Sui Lao Hu. When the vendor protested about bringing in barrels, Egg shut him down, reminding him this wasn't the first time. Unconscious men were hauled in. Inside, Egg declared Jack the hero who defeated Lo Pan and demanded access. The vendor relented and led them to a back room. They entered a lounge where the hulking Tai Sui Lao Hu lounged in a robe, eating takeout with a fox-like pet on his lap. Egg insisted they came for urgent business and presented Jack's body. Tai Sui casually dismissed him as a dead Caucasian with a mullet, but Egg argued Jack sacrificed himself to defeat Lo Pan and asked for his soul to be returned. Tai Sui agreed to examine the body and instructed them to put Jack on the table. Tai Sui checked Jack's forehead and confirmed there might be a chance. He dropped noodles on Jack's face as part of a mystic reading, startling everyone. He sensed Jack's spirit had not found peace. Instead, it was joined by a malevolent force at the moment of death, Lo Pan. Jack had fallen into torment alongside him. Tai Sui revealed it was worse than expected. Jack's soul was trapped in the hell of no return. Egg gasped in horror, not wanting to believe it. Wang asked if the presence of Lo Pan's spirit had been detected just from the noodles. Tai Sui admitted he'd actually followed the metaphysical path of Jack's chai, but also thought the noodles would look funny on his face. Egg dropped to his knees, devastated. He believed there was nothing more they could do. Jack Burton was lost forever. Jack and Lo Pan were tied to stakes in the hell of no return, surrounded by grotesque demons. Jack tried to reason with them, insisting he was just a truck driver and didn't deserve any torment near his unmentionables. One demon cackled gleefully, while another prepared a branding iron. Jack pointed out Lo Pan to divert attention, calling him Jerko numero uno. Lo Pan warned that begging for mercy would only fuel their tormentors. When Jack urged Lo Pan to confess his crimes, the sorcerer reluctantly admitted, "It is true," prompting Jack to groan in disbelief. A demon warrior appeared, declaring Lo Pan's sentence official. Jack asked who he was, and Lo Pan explained he'd once humiliated the demon's master. The demon revealed his vengeance vengeance, enslaving the master's family, beating him to death, and drinking his dog's blood. Jack replied, "You got real problems, man." The demon mocked Lo Pan, who scoffed at his attempts at gloating. They exchanged childish insults like buttface, booty licker, and turd head, until Jack rolled his eyes and asked if they were in the hell of potty-mouthed name-callers. The demon raised his sword and declared Lo Pan's suffering would become legendary. Jack was unfazed. Lo Pan suddenly offered a deal. What if he delivered a martyr, a noble hero whose sacrifice could restore the demon's honor? The demon paused, interested. When asked how, Lo Pan pointed to Jack, claiming he had died vanquishing him and that their souls were now tied. He offered Jack's martyrdom in exchange for free passage out of the hell of no return. The demon, persuaded by the offer to regain his status, slashed Lo Pan's bindings free and agreed with a curt "done." Lo Pan bid farewell to Jack, declaring his intention to escape the afterlife and reclaim his mortal kingdom. Jack, shocked, protested that this was supposed to be the inescapable hell. Lo Pan smugly replied that even hell had loopholes. As Lo Pan walked off to pursue earthly pleasures with Miao Yin, Jack shouted that she wasn't into him. The demon jailer ignored Jack's interruptions and warned him to hush, delivering a heavy thump to his head. The demon then turned its attention to Jack, telling him he had his own problems. With a fiery blade, it approached and revealed a twisted desire. It had always wanted to skin a martyr. Jack, still bound and staring at the glowing sword, listened in grim disbelief as the demon asked whether they should start peeling him from the top or the bottom. Jack's fate now hung by a thread in a place where escape was just traded for vengeance. Chapter 10. As the intense standoff continued, Jack faced the flaming blade of the demon executioner. Despite the peril, he kept his cool, warning the demon not to make promises it couldn't keep. But just as things were about to turn violent, everything shifted into a surreal new stage. Jack and the demons now sat around a poker table. The demon, still bitter, accused Jack of taking everything from him and vowed to win this time. Jack casually went all in. The demon threw down a flush, confident of victory, but Jack revealed a full house and won again. The demons groaned in defeat, one lamenting that without his armor, his she-demon wouldn't even let him through the door. Jack celebrated with the spoils, armor, sword, and a skull helmet, declaring, "That's the way the game goes." Then, with a sly grin, he offered the demons a chance to win everything back. At first, they hesitated, but Jack tempted them by proposing the ultimate bet, the secret path out of the inescapable hell. That got their attention. After a brief huddle, the demons agreed. Jack shuffled cards again and introduced the next round as a 5-card stud. Confident, the demons played their hand, a straight flush. They laughed triumphantly, declaring fate was not to be mocked. Jack laid down his final hand with flair, calling it a full Jack down, claiming 6 jacks, an unbeatable hand. The demons looked confused, and Jack started justifying it through wild math, claiming combinations like 2 + 9 equals 11, which equals a jack. Then he dramatically added a jack of spades to seal the hand. The demons, overwhelmed by Jack's absurd but confident logic, lamented their loss. Jack reminded them that a bet's a bet and asked how to leave. One demon reluctantly gave directions involving the flayed torso of Hitler and a misleading "no exit" sign. Jack walked off smugly, remarking that escaping hell was easier than getting out of a marriage. Back on the mortal plane in San Francisco's Chinatown, a demon and the group discussed Jack's fate. When someone asked if he was lost forever, the demon mentioned a mysterious figure named Pan Ku. The others recognized the name and confirmed he was a strange turtle-riding entity with deep knowledge about these matters. Unfortunately, no one knew where to find him. The demon shrugged, saying Pan Ku was a wanderer. With that, Wang decided to try tracking him down and rushed off with the old woman. The demon insisted they bring back beer if they were leaving a dead white guy in his house. Meanwhile, Jack found himself in a strange purgatory between hells, wondering how his life had led to this. A nearby armoured guard warned he was entering the monotonous hell of the gluttonous bull. Jack shrugged off the dramatics. The guard explained it was filled with mild annoyances and said Lo Pan had passed through recently, ranting about vengeance. Jack asked about a bar, and to his surprise, the guard said one existed. Overjoyed, Jack offered to buy a round. Touched, Slinky the guard agreed and enthusiastically joined Jack on his journey. Slinky guided Jack through the twisting paths of purgatory while cheerfully wrapping his tail around him. Jack awkwardly asked him to keep his distance, but Slinky was just excited to have company and vented about how dull and humorless everyone in purgatory usually was. As they walked, Slinky warned Jack not to expect much from the bar they were headed to, calling it a hell of minor annoyances. Jack wasn't fazed. He considered himself a connoisseur of cheap beer. They reached the bar, which looked like a haunted, chaotic dive crawling with bizarre creatures. Inside, Jack was reminded of a place he once visited in Atlanta. At the bar, Jack spotted Lo Pan and called out to him enthusiastically, much to Lo Pan's horror. Jack advanced on him confidently while Lo Pan panicked, realizing the no exit sign hadn't stopped anyone from leaving hell. Jack confronted Lo Pan, sword drawn, declaring this would be their final fight. Lo Pan mocked him, claiming superiority in life and death. They clashed, and Jack landed a solid kick. While Lo Pan staggered, Jack asked Slinky for advice, who told him to hit Lo Pan with a jar of pickled eyes. Jack hurled the jar, exploding it across Lo Pan's face in a grotesque mess. However, Jack was soon thrown across the room, shattering furniture. Slinky looked concerned and spotted Jack's medallion on the floor. He picked it up with determination. Meanwhile, Jack crashed into the floor, dazed but furious. With toy trucks spinning around his head, he growled that Lo Pan had finally made him mad, signaling he was ready to turn the tables in this chaotic showdown. Lo Pan locked Jack in a chokehold, declaring he would create a new hell just for Jack's eternal torment. Their brawl escalated until the angry bartender stormed in, demanding to know who was wrecking his bar. Both Jack and Lo Pan immediately pointed fingers at each other. The bartender wasn't interested in excuses. He wanted payment for the damages. Jack offered to cover his half, but Lo Pan stayed quiet. When the bartender opened the till to collect, he discovered the payment was worthless junk. Furious, he raged about being cheated. Jack realized they had been duped, while the demons from the earlier poker game laughed uncontrollably at how easily they tricked him. As punishment, the bartender sent both Jack and Lo Pan to the kitchen to wash dishes. Meanwhile, Slinky used Jack's medallion to empower his own armor. As he walked away, he muttered that he never liked the bar anyway. Chapter 11. At the last bar in hell, Jack and Lo Pan were stuck doing dish duty. Jack insisted on a system. He'd wash and Lo Pan would rinse. But Lo Pan refused to go second. Jack reminded him he'd already scrubbed pots twice and wasn't doing it again. Lo Pan grumbled that world domination didn't prepare him for this indignity. Jack sarcastically commented on Lo Pan's lack of pride in his work. Enraged, Lo Pan declared he was reduced to servitude next to hell's greatest fool. In retaliation, he shoved a pot over Jack's head. Jack reminded him he'd died twice by his hand, prompting Slinky to mock Lo Pan for his professionalism. The bar owner yelled at them to quiet down and stop disturbing the customers. As they argued, a stack of dishes smashed, to which Jack sarcastically said he was glad they had more. Outside, Slinky sprinted across the desert in a new armoured suit, causing tremors that rattled the bar. Jack and Lo Pan panicked. Slinky smashed in through the wall, shouting he came for his pal. Jack cheered him on and ditched Lo Pan, who was left alone with the dishes. Slinky broke Jack out and Jack praised him. The bar owner, furious, ordered his minions to attack. As the fight erupted, Jack warned Slinky they were in trouble. Slinky held his ground, but attackers overwhelmed him. Explosions shook the building, and one attacker cried out after getting hit in the eye. The bar creaked, then collapsed in a massive explosion, leaving a smouldering crater. The bar owner mourned his beautiful establishment. Slinky and Jack stood nearby. Jack scoffed, calling the place overrated. Furious, the bar owner pointed at them and vowed revenge, shouting, "You're gonna pay for this!" as smoke and debris filled the sky. Jack, Slinky and Lo Pan fled as an angry mob chased them. They reached the cliff's edge, staring down into the swirling chaos below. Slinky tried to lighten the mood, offering his carpentry skills to help rebuild the bar, but a monstrous flying creature swooped in, throwing everything into disarray. Jack and Slinky narrowly avoided getting crushed by debris as they tumbled down with the cliff. They landed hard but alive. Jack groaned while Slinky brushed it off as just another escape. From afar, Lo Pan watched and promised Jack wouldn't see him again, but vowed to return to the mortal realm to exact revenge on Jack's friends. Jack mocked his hairnet, prompting Lo Pan to snap back, threatening to wield the black serpent's tongue. Jack and Slinky dismissed him and moved on. Curious, Jack asked what the black serpent's tongue was. Slinky Slinky launched into an epic tale. Before light came to the universe, the old gods shaped the world, and Yama defeated the Black Dragon of Chaos, ripping out its tongue and forging the greatest blade in existence, the Black Serpent's tongue. With it, Yama carved all the levels of purgatory and hell, but delved so deep into the hell of ice and sorrow that both he and the blade were frozen beyond reach. Legends said that whoever retrieved the blade would control all of hell and wield dominion over life and death. Jack listened as Slinky recounted how Yama had vanished beneath the ice, blade in hand, sealing his fate. Jack realized that if Lo Pan got his hands on the Black Serpent's tongue, he'd return from the dead, become all-powerful, and doom them all. Slinky reassured him that many had tried to retrieve the blade and failed, but Jack wasn't so sure. He reminded Slinky that Lo Pan had already come back twice and wouldn't pursue the blade without a real plan. Jack then told Slinky to lead the way to the hell of ice and sorrow. Meanwhile, Lo Pan began a ritual atop a spire, summoning the dark gods. He called upon them for the breath of the green flame, insisting it was urgent. The gods appeared, questioning why they should grant power to someone who had fallen. Lo Pan pledged his loyalty and promised to use the flame to subdue his enemies in their name. He declared he'd pay any price. The gods demanded 10,000 tormented souls in exchange. If Lo Pan failed to deliver, they warned his punishment would terrify even the damned. He agreed eagerly. The ritual was completed as he stood in glowing green flame, signaling the pack's sealing. His soul was linked to the dragonfire. A pair of travelers, including Egg Shen, ascended a celestial bridge toward a temple. Egg explained that the elusive Panku could be found here every Tuesday night playing mahjong. At the temple gates, they were stopped by insectoid guards who demanded a $35 membership fee for entry. When refused, the guards denied them access. The younger traveler snapped, fighting off the guards with swift martial arts. Egg encouraged him, shouting that they didn't have time for delays. The skirmish escalated as they forced their way into the temple. After knocking out the temple guards, Egg Shen dryly noted they could have just paid the $35. A boy peeked from inside, questioning the commotion. Inside the temple, a rowdy game of mahjong was already underway among bizarre creatures. Panku, a giant turtle, and a grumpy bird included. Panku accused another of cheating, sparking a flurry of denials and insults. Egg Shen stepped forward and addressed Panku, asking for help with Jack Burton. Panku casually acknowledged them, already aware of their request. The bird loudly declared the game over, again accusing others of cheating. Panku argued back, but eventually declared he'd meet them at Tai Sui's place, slowly riding off atop his turtle. Egg Shen noted they didn't have time to wait on turtle, as Wang put it bluntly. Meanwhile, Jack and Slinky trudged across the frozen outskirts of the hell of ice and sorrow, wrapped in thick furs. Jack was grateful for the clothing until Slinky admitted he promised Jack's hand in marriage to a trader's daughter, one with 3 heads and cloven hooves. Jack wasn't pleased, but Slinky assured him he'd used a fake name and doubted they'd survive to fulfill the promise. They soon spotted Lo Pan's footprints and followed. Elsewhere, Lo Pan stood ahead, eyes glowing and green flames spewing from his mouth. Chapter 12. In San Francisco's Chinatown on the Mortal Plain, Egg and the others rushed back to the bar. Inside, Jack Burton's lifeless body lay on a pool table while the Turtle Guardian waited silently. As they entered, a frustrated character complained about waiting an hour with the Turtle Man, joking that he wasn't great company. Another impatiently asked where the beer was. Egg introduced Jack to Panku, requesting help. Panku identified Jack as the only dead man in the room and noted he had died nobly. Without delay, Panku began his resurrection ritual, channeling red ethereal threads of energy between his hands and transferring them into Jack's body. After a brief, intense burst of power marked by a massive KRA Kum, Panku announced the ritual was done, but Jack remained unresponsive. When asked why he was still dead, Panku explained that while Jack's body had been preserved due to his righteous sacrifice, his spirit was another matter. It was now Jack's own responsibility to find his way back from the spirit realm. Panku said that no one else could help with that, though Jack had the luck of the righteous fool. As Egg and the others stepped outside, Panku reminded them that time flowed differently in the realm of spirits. The wait could be long. The group somberly watched him ride away atop his turtle, bidding Jack's friends farewell. Moments later, the rest considered grabbing beers while they waited. Meanwhile, deep in the hell of ice and sorrow, Jack, Slinky and a pug companion trudged through the snow. Jack offered Slinky a chance to turn back, but Slinky refused, valuing their friendship too much. As the blizzard worsened, a blue spirit warned them to turn back. Tearfully, it repeated, "Turn back," as the freezing wind howled around them. The spirit suddenly froze and broke into pieces. Slinky quipped, "Pleasant," as they brushed off the impact. Jack spotted a distant green glow and declared it had to be Lopan. As they pushed forward, they entered a cavernous tunnel of swirling ice descending deeper. Meanwhile, Lopan stood below, spewing a blast of the green flame into the ice wall, warping it with mystical energy. Inside the tunnel, Jack and Slinky slipped uncontrollably and tumbled through, screaming. Slinky tried to strategize, but the terrain gave them no chance. They landed hard right in Lopan's lair. The villain smugly welcomed Jack, declaring he would now ascend as ruler of all hell and reclaim Miao Yin. He promised Jack agony and began by lifting Slinky into the air with a magical blast and reducing him to bones. Jack cried out for his friend. Jack charged through the green energy, trying to stop Lopan, but got caught mid-air, shouting in frustration. Lopan explained he had bargained with the dark gods, promising 10,000 souls in exchange for the breath of the green flame. Jack sarcastically asked if he ever tired of being a jerk. Lopan admitted he did not. Slinky's skull insulted Lopan's choices, saying he should have wished for self-awareness. Lopan lost patience and struck the skull. As he turned his back, declaring he'd been delayed long enough, he let out another massive blast of green flame toward his path, determined to complete his mission. Jack, silhouetted against the glow, stood ready as the confrontation escalated. Lopan spotted the black serpent's tongue encased in ice and reached for it eagerly. Just before he could touch it, a massive figure burst through the ice. Yama, the judge of hell, wielding the very blade. Jack and Lopan stood in awe as Yama shattered the prison that had held him for eons. Yama declared his wish to leave this frozen realm and rejoin his brethren among the stars. He then explained that only the one most worthy could claim the blade and rule all of Hell's kingdoms. Yama asked what feats Jack had achieved. Jack, unfazed, humorously recounted a ridiculous string of drunken adventures involving hauling hogs, poker marathons, spitting contests, and passing out in filth. Lopan glared, clearly unimpressed. Jack smugly apologized for setting the bar so high. Lopan stepped up, boasting of his battles, power, and loyalty to the dark gods. He listed his many titles and emphasized he was the one who freed Yama, believing that made the blade rightfully his. But Yama remained silent. Jack and Lopan stood in suspense as Yama's looming shadow said nothing for an awkwardly long time. Finally, Yama reached for the blade, but instead of handing it to Lopan, he turned and offered it to Jack. Jack grinned and said he'd rather give it to the idiot, implying himself. Enraged, Lopan screamed in protest. As Jack grabbed the hilt, an immense surge of power erupted, launching him backward in a brilliant blast of red energy, sword in hand. Jack stood confidently with the sword, now feeling like a cosmic god. He confronted Lopan, mocking him for failing to uphold his deal with his dark god allies. As red spectral arms emerged from the ground to drag Lopan down, Jack told him the gods wanted a word. Lopan screamed and begged Jack to save him, appealing to their shared history. Jack casually denied him with a simple "screw you" and stomped him into the pit. Jack then turned to Slinky. He restored him and was thanked warmly. Jack decided he didn't want to rule hell and offered the job to Slinky, who was surprised but thrilled. Slinky accepted the sword and announced his plans for changes in hell, starting with Taco Tuesday. Back on Earth in 2015, Jack was encased as a museum attraction called the Amazing 80s Ossified Man. Kids poked fun at his outdated appearance until Jack gasped back to life, smashing out of the display and terrifying everyone. As he asked where he was, one kid said, 2015, and teased Jack about his mullet. When the boy mentioned posting Jack's look online, Jack stared in dismay and muttered, "Maybe I should have stayed in hell." Chapter 13. A large truck labelled Howlin' Ass barreled through Chinatown as Jack narrated philosophical musings about people being too absorbed in screens to truly live. The vehicle's arrival sent people scrambling while others began snapping photos of the bizarre turtle creatures clinging to the back. One of them lunged at a bystander, causing panic. Inside the truck, Jack casually drove while holding a radio, quoting a wise man when Miao Yin warned him to watch out. A snarl snarling, mummy-like creature suddenly appeared on the windshield. Jack was confused until a turtle crashed through the window. He thanked Meow Yin and warned the creatures to stay on their side of the truck. The turtles continued climbing along the outside. As the truck sped down an alley, Jack returned to his philosophical rambling about how time and experience change a man. Overhead, a helicopter trailed them, filled with the turtle monsters. The chopper launched missiles. Jack swerved as explosions rocked the alley, blasting apart structures. Still undeterred, Jack proclaimed himself the real fortune cookie prophet. His truck, now adorned with a giant Shram's logo and covered in shell creatures, roared through Little Tokyo. Meanwhile, at a remote gas station in Arizona, Jack explained via narration how he woke up in 2015 due to Chinese black magic. A strange group arrived, one in a red jumpsuit, another muscular man in military gear, a masked man with a jetpack, and a pink robot. As they exited their vehicle, they asked the old man about the attraction known as the ossified 80s man. He gave them a long look and replied, "Well, ain't you boys a sight?" The group had apparently travelled far just to see Jack Burton, unknowingly stepping into even more trouble. A man wearing shades informed the team that they were too late. Inside, the owner explained to them how he once had the ossified 80s man as a display and called him Ol 0S9. He shared how after dropping out of 8th grade, he entered the roadside fuel business and kept Jack in a display case until he suddenly woke up and burst out of it. The man in the red jumpsuit realised they had missed their chance. Outside, the tough soldier, Attila, sniffed the dirt and even tasted it, prompting confusion from the man in shades. The soldier then pointed out the direction Jack went. The man explained how Jack had been disoriented, thinking it was still 1986, so they pitied him and gave him a bus ticket to San Francisco. Suddenly, he started choking the local outside and violently threw him through a glass window. Back inside, the locals pulled guns on the intruders. The man in the red jumpsuit let out a powerful screech, throwing a liquid in their faces, temporarily blinding them. One man yelled that she got something in his eye. The pink robot, Joystick, chimed in with its usual "that's what she said" line. The man in the jumpsuit then took down all the locals with quick martial arts moves, knocking them out one by one. Meanwhile, the masked man prepared a cheap makeshift explosive device using a soda can, a battery, and a light. He activated it, causing a massive explosion behind the team as they coolly walked away from the blast. The man in the jumpsuit thanked Joystick for always moving the van right before their dramatic exits. The robot repeated its catchphrase. As they boarded the van, the masked man questioned Joystick's phrasing. Joystick replied with another innuendo, making the masked man groan. They then agreed to focus their mission on finding Jack Burton, driving off across the desert. Jack greeted the young woman at the front desk, mistaking her for Meow Yin. She corrected him. Her name was Winona Chi, Meow Yin's daughter. Jack was stunned and tried to recover by complimenting her youthful looks and asking for a hug, but Winona shot him down with a snarky comment about privilege. She then called out to her dad, saying Jack's weird old Caucasian friend had arrived. Wang Chi rushed out, thrilled to see Jack again, barely believing his eyes. Jack pointed out Wang's changed appearance, less hair, more belly, but embraced him warmly anyway. Winona joked awkwardly about them getting married. Jack then asked where Meow Yin was. At the mention, Wang's expression turned pained, and Jack grew concerned. Wang tried to hold back tears, but they spilled out. Jack understood that something was wrong. Wang revealed that Meow had left him for a rich casino magnate she met on Facebook. Jack responded with sarcasm, asking why she was on such a site, which only made things worse. Winona reminded them Jack had missed 30 years and should stop judging. She handed Wang a tissue while encouraging him to stay positive. Wang tried, but broke down again, clinging to Jack. Jack, confused and slightly overwhelmed, joked about Wang being defeated by fast food. When he asked about his truck, Wang said they'd get to it but wanted Jack to meet someone first. He introduced Eddie Lee, who was deep into a conspiracy wall of maps and photos. Jack was shocked. Eddie asked if Jack had seen Margot in any of the hells. Wang explained Eddie had married Margot after Jack's death. She had written a bestseller about the Lopan incident, which was turned into a cult movie. Jack was amused that Snake Plissken played him. After her book's success, Margot travelled and wrote more titles like Big Trouble in Little Armenia, Little Haiti, and Little Calgary, but disappeared while researching Big Trouble in Little Odessa. Eddie believed her disappearance was connected to Russian witches under Baba Yaga. Jack remained skeptical. Wang lamented the internet's influence on Eddie, calling it the enabler net. Jack tried asking again about his truck. Wang hesitated, prompting Jack to panic. Wang admitted that more trouble was coming, but before he could explain, Winona stepped in, defending her father fiercely. Winona lashed out at Jack, venting years of frustration. She reminded him that their mother left, Margot disappeared, Eddie had a breakdown, and the restaurant was barely staying afloat. Jack had been gone for 30 years, and they had assumed he was never coming back. She told him someone had to take charge, and then revealed she had done something with his truck. Meanwhile, Attila, Joystick, and the rest of the team watched the restaurant from across the street. Joystick noted things were heating up, and Attila responded with a grunt. One of them asked if they should call it in, and the man in the red jumpsuit picked up a bulky phone and said he was on it. Elsewhere, in a tower of Negamaki Plaza, Mr. Shido received a call from Mr. Lee. They discussed a package that had resurfaced. Shido, pleased, said it would feel good after all these years to finally complete his collection, revealing Jack's truck stored in his garage. Chapter 14. Jack and Wang arrived at the gates of Gracie Law's cliffside mansion. Jack was shocked to learn she lived there, remembering her as someone who championed hopeless causes. Wang explained that in the early 90s, Gracie had sued tobacco companies over their cartoon mascot Joe Backy, won a huge settlement, and had been wealthy ever since. Jack was dismayed to learn Joe Backy got banned, calling him the bug with all the babes. Gracie greeted them warmly, and Jack tried to flirt, but quickly shifted to business. He told her he needed a lawyer to sue the Chi family for selling his truck. Gracie declined, revealing she already worked for the Chi family and had helped broker the original deal with Buddy Shido. Jack was stunned. Gracie then briefed them on Shido, dubbed the Samurai of Wall Street. He had modelled his hedge fund on ancient Japanese philosophy and, fearing an economic takeover, sealed himself in Negamaki Plaza in LA's Little Tokyo. He hadn't left since, and controlled his empire through proxies. Jack and Wang debated the terminology of calling Shido Oriental, which Wang corrected to Asian. Gracie clarified that Shido was actually a white guy obsessed with Japanese and 80s pop culture, which explained his fixation on Jack's truck. It was a cultural relic to him. Suddenly, Joystick, Attila, the masked man, and their smooth-talking leader entered. Jack was startled. Wang stepped up to defend him, but was immediately knocked down by a dramatic kick from the red-suited man. Wang writhed on the floor with a pulled groin and a bruised back, begging for help. The leader declared anyone who wanted Gracie would have to go through them, but Gracie revealed she was the one who hired the team to find Jack. They had tracked him from Arizona, but arrived late. Jack stared at them in disbelief, wondering who they were, and sarcastically guessed they were a cover band. Lieutenant John Attila narrated the origin of his team, the Alpha Group, composed of himself, Jerry Lee, the man in the red jumpsuit, Gadgeteer, the masked man, and Joystick, the sexbot. All were former US Army Special Forces. During the invasion of Grenada, they were framed for a crime they didn't commit. They escaped a maximum security stockade and now lived underground as soldiers of fortune, surviving via social media and email blasts. Jack awkwardly tried to understand their grunts, but asked someone else to explain their intentions, preferably not Joystick. The robot chimed in anyway. The team revealed they planned to exploit Shido's obsession with 80s memorabilia to get into his fortress. Since Shido wanted the Pork Chop Express so badly, they'd used Jack, the truck's driver, as bait. Originally, Joystick was to be smuggled in the display case, but now that Jack was ambulatory, he was the better option. Gracie joined in, confirming their plan. She revealed her own grudge against Shido, blaming him for the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis. She needed hard evidence for a class action case and handed Jack a virus, developed by an NSA whistleblower that could extract data from Shido's computers. Once Jack got in, he would help the Alpha Group access Shido's files. Wang was to be sold as the 80s man to get close. Wang, icing his injuries with peas, gratefully accepted. Later, after a spinal adjustment, he begged Jack to let him join the mission. Jack initially joked about how unimpressed he was with the future, especially smartphones, calling them useless gadgets. But when Wang tearfully pleaded, saying he needed this adventure to rebuild his self-esteem, Jack relented. With a smile, he agreed to bring Wang along, insisting it wouldn't feel right to embark on a suicidal, transportation-related retrieval mission without his best friend. Jack complained about returning to the convenience store coffin setup, skeptical about the plan. Wang reassured him, trusting Gracie's judgment and recalling how she helped him keep the restaurant after his divorce from Miao Yin. As he started crying again, Jack reluctantly climbed into the freezer. When he noticed needles, Wang explained they were filled with a blowfish alkaloid potion from Winona's magic studies that would simulate death. Jack sighed and agreed to be injected. Once Jack was asleep, Wang called for help loading the freezer into the truck. He told Winona he wouldn't be long, but just in case, gave her a letter for her mother, only to be unexpectedly injected by Winona. She declared she was going with Plan B, sedated her father, and took his place on the delivery run. Winona arrived at Negamaki Plaza, telling the bodyguards she was Wang's daughter. The three women introduced themselves as Shido's personal guards and asked for the mummy. Winona presented the frozen Jack. The women were unimpressed, jokingly calling him ossified 80s man, and didn't even check his vitals before accepting the handoff. One of them paid Winona, who tried to leave but was immediately held at gunpoint by Grunt. Inside, Jack was wheeled into a room with the women and Mr. Shido. He greeted the ossified Jack, saying he would figure out how to display him with the Pork Chop Express. Later, Jack suddenly woke up and smashed through the freezer glass in a panic. Sitting up in a back room decorated with 80s memorabilia and a Reagan portrait, he sheepishly realized he'd forgotten the latch was inside and muttered, "Guess I panicked," as he surveyed his odd surroundings. Jack wandered deeper into Shido's building and entered a room stacked with bizarre novelty toys and off-brand merchandise. He joked that the place looked like a mausoleum for good taste, but just when he thought he'd seen the worst of it, he entered a brightly coloured, tiled room that stunned him into saying, "Now I've seen everything." As he stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind him, locking him in. Realizing he triggered a mechanism, Jack started stepping randomly on the tiles. With each step, tiles began clicking beneath him, eventually opening a new door. Triumphant, he celebrated with a loud Yahtzee! Elsewhere, Jack snuck into the security room where two of Shido's guards were distracted playing an arcade game, Ghost Muncher. He pulled out the canister device given to him by the gadgeteer, hoping it would work as promised. As he activated it, green gas filled the room, knocking out the guards and security staff. Jack confirmed it worked, surprised and impressed. Meanwhile, Joystick noted Jack had been gone for nearly 15 minutes. The team waited anxiously in the garage. Jerry Lee expressed doubts about Jack pulling off the mission, while the others discussed post-heist cleanup. Winona, now gagged and tied up, overheard them coldly agreeing. This time, there would be no witnesses. Chapter 15. Jack narrowly dodged friendly fire as the Alpha group stormed in, guns blazing. Confused and ducking for cover, Jack asked if they were still on the same side. Gadgeteer sarcastically confirmed and told Jack to hold that heroic pose. Seconds later, Jack dodged exploding cabbages as Joystick fired again, and Jack called out the sarcasm. Suddenly, Jack was swarmed by an entire army of colour-coded, sword-wielding women. Realising the scale of the threat, he shouted they had a Red Dawn situation and ordered Shido to be moved. Shido was escorted out, smugly commenting on how easily he bruises, while one of the women responded with urgency. Jack stood frozen, flanked by the Alpha group on one side and the Sword Squad on the other. As the women advanced, he shouted in frustration, asking if they were going to fight or keep giving each other looks. The chaos erupted into an all-out melee between both groups. Elsewhere, Winona, still bound and gagged, finally managed to call for help. She shouted for police, fire and legal assistance, identifying herself and demanding someone call her lawyer, Gracie Law. The door creaked open, revealing Joystick. She asked if he was really left to guard her. Joystick responded in his usual glitchy, pervy manner, repeating, "That's what she said," and rambling about cable parts and sexual innuendos. Winona didn't miss a beat, telling him, "Intercourse, it's not just a town in Pennsylvania," and finished her thought with a cheeky grin. 4 letters, ends with a K. Joystick blushed and short-circuited, completely flustered, and blasted into bits and pieces. Jack sprinted away from the chaos while Jerry Lee shouted after him, reminding him he had already died once. Jack reached the colourful tile trap room again, activated it with his foot and made a quick escape, calling back mockingly, "Smell you later, Curly!" Meanwhile, Winona called out to him from a window, explaining that the mercenaries Gracie hired had gone rogue. Jack sarcastically replied that he already figured that out and asked why she was in LA and where her dad was. Winona snapped that her father was exactly where he should be, running a restaurant, not getting involved in Jack's dangerous antics. She said her dad hadn't been the same since Jack came into his life, always whining about the past. As Jerry Lee tried to escape the same trap room, she failed miserably and fell through it. Jack admitted Wang had been a great sidekick, the best damn sidekick a man of the world like Jack Burton could ask for. Winona challenged that, saying Wang claimed Jack was the sidekick. Jack refused to believe it, suggesting Wang embellished the truth. Jack asked when the cops were arriving, only to learn Winona hadn't called them. She explained they took her phone, and when Jack asked why she didn't use a payphone, she blankly asked, "What's a payphone?" Jack dropped to his knees in agony, wailing, "No!" Suddenly, Jerry Lee burst in, but Jack told Winona to run and call for help. Then, Winona leapt forward and engaged Jerry Lee in a one-on-one martial arts duel, using a flurry of brilliantly named kung fu moves, like Golden Leopard Turns Around and Dragon Palm Strike. Winona took Jerry Lee down. As Jerry Lee lay defeated, "Winona Chi wins!" played like Mortal Kombat in Jack's mind. Jack, stunned, smiled and said, "Okay, you can stay." Jack and Winona chased after the jetpack-wearing mercenary, Gadgeteer, with Winona yelling that he still had her money. Jack, on the other hand, was fixated on recovering his truck. As Gadgeteer took off, Jack demanded answers about his truck while dismissing Winona's comment about slave dollars. Suddenly, Attila, the large merc, erupted from the koi pond, bellowing that nobody cared about Jack's truck and opened fire furiously. Jack and Winona darted into another room, with Jack smashing through the door as gunfire trailed behind them. Inside, Winona stared at the bizarre decor and remarked, "It must be the room Shido used to kill any romantic fantasies people had about him." As Attila reloaded, Jack and Winona ducked behind a couch, narrowly avoiding another wave of bullets. Meanwhile, Shido, in another room, mourned the loss of his rare collectibles, especially a complete set of MLC shrooms, most of which had been recalled due to toxic paint. Still, he took solace in the pursuit itself. Elsewhere, two of Shido's bodyguards mocked Gadgeteer's makeshift weapon, calling it a rusty leaf blower. Gadgeteer defended it proudly, saying they only cost $44.75 apiece, tax-free. But one of his launched projectiles, intercepted mid-air, began to beep ominously. When it exploded, Shido realized things had gone too far. He decided it was time to activate the ancient debt, placing on a mystical pendant as jade eyes glowed to life. Back near the fire, Jack and Winona coughed in the smoke. Jack suddenly stood up, feeling invincible, grabbed a wrench and charged Attila. He managed to get one solid hit before Attila countered with a massive punch that sent Jack flying. Jack slammed into a framed sketch and changed into a 2D sketch of himself, just like the Take On Me video. As Winona and Attila looked on, Jack blinked and muttered, "Now I feel kinda incomplete." Chapter 16. Jack and Winona watched as Gadgeteer, now swarmed by tiny goblin-like creatures summoned by the water, crashed through the building window and plummeted outside, still screaming for them to get off him. Jack, still holding the computer doodad, commented that maybe they should have waited to see how that played out, but Winona pulled him along, saying they had no time. Meanwhile, Attila stormed through the building, shouting Jack's name in rage. Winona and Jack found a staircase and rushed down, with Jack complaining about the amount of stairs. As they reached the lower level, Attila burst through a wall after them, still furious. Winona joked that Jack must have really made the guy mad, but Jack said he didn't even know what he did. They kept moving through the halls, trying to find an exit, while Attila charged after them, destroying walls and furniture along the way. Suddenly, a massive explosion rocked the building, sending debris flying. Jack and Winona barely managed to dodge falling rubble. Jack thought they were in the clear until a giant piece of ceiling collapsed right in front of them. Winona pointed out a nearby door and they sprinted toward it. As they escaped into another room, Jack gasped for breath while Winona scouted ahead. She spotted a doorway leading outside, but warned Jack they still weren't safe yet. Jack agreed, realizing they had to hurry or end up squashed. The two ran toward the exit as behind them, the building continued collapsing, fires spreading everywhere. Jack and Winona watched in horror as Shido marched down the hallway, leading a horde of green kappa monsters. Jack called out to the river children, pleading with them to listen to their loving master, but Shido ignored him and ordered the kappas to stop them and retrieve the flash drive. Winona shouted in disbelief, while Jack, recognizing the situation, declared it was the part where they run. As they fled, the unconscious Attila stirred. Jack and Winona reached the vehicle bay Jack had previously scoped out. He revealed the place was essentially a massive car elevator. Jack hit the switch to ascend, thinking they were safe, but the kappas fearlessly leapt down to pursue them. Jack panicked. He wasn't nearly as fearless. The two jumped into a truck cab. Winona searched for Jack's license and registration under the glove box. With the kappas closing in, she found a shotgun. Despite not knowing how to use it, she blasted a kappa through the windshield and continued reloading while Jack frantically shouted. Winona blamed the truck's shaking. Jack reminded her it was her hands causing it. Suddenly, Shido fell on the front of the truck. The fall killed Shido. Jack and Winona were stunned. Jack looked up and saw Attila. He questioned why Attila killed him when Gracie wanted Shido alive, but Attila only grunted and triggered a massive explosion behind him, walking away in cinematic slow motion. Meanwhile, the truck was being overrun with kappas. As Jack and Winona hid, they realized some men, like Attila, couldn't be bought or reasoned with. Attila slipped away from the chaos, rappelled off the truck, and spotted a military helicopter. He activated it. The onboard AI, Skyhowl, greeted him and requested targets. Attila set the targeting parameter to hippies. The helicopter burst through the roof, ready for war. Gadgeteer crash-landed through a window with several kappas still latched onto him, scrambling to get them off. He flung one through the air just as it triggered an explosion, destroying his jetpack. Reflecting on the $37.68 in Home Depot parts it cost him, he reasoned it was either the creature or him. Meanwhile, the Skyhowl helicopter locked onto a target labelled Hippie and fired, but Jack's truck ran over Gadgeteer accidentally. Jack, annoyed, yelled he wasn't a tree hugger despite his past. The chopper launched more missiles while Jack narrated the absurdity of their current situation, fleeing LA covered in turtle goblins and getting shot at by a helicopter with a presidential personality. Jack broadcasted on CB radio, calling for help from anyone out there. Silence followed until a voice responded, "Taffeta darling," from the fangirl's truck. She guided Jack toward an exit and hinted at a way out he could use to his advantage. Winona found the route on the map, and Jack thanked Taffeta, calling her his favourite gal, next to his rig. Taffeta wished him luck as they barreled forward. The Skyhowl helicopter followed closely. Jack blasted his horn and forced other vehicles to veer aside. They sped past the Ronald Reagan National Archive, still swarming with kappas. The chopper's targeting system highlighted 3 potential targets: a statue labelled Mommy, a jelly bean stand, and a Gorby bust. The onboard AI prepared to fire, and the pilot, Attila, gritted his teeth, hammering the controls. Missiles armed, he sneered with a twisted grin, quoting, "You know what the scariest words in the English language are?" As the helicopter descended toward the archive, it broadcasted, "I'm from the government. I'm here to help," signaling an imminent attack. The helicopter suddenly went out of control and hit a mountainside. A massive explosion followed. Jack stepped out of his truck, teary-eyed. When asked why he was crying, he said they'd won one for the Gipper. Winona pointed out they won both with and despite the Gipper. Nearby, officials examined the unconscious kappas. A man explained they were figures from Japanese folklore who needed water-filled skull depressions to survive. California's mega drought left them with no supply, and their water likely evaporated. The woman laughed, calling them stupid for coming to California. They both laughed, then abruptly sobered up, realizing they were all doomed. Elsewhere, Wang woke up groggy, calling for Winona. He mumbled about needing to drive Jack to LA before the coma potion wore off. When he didn't find Winona, he wandered out, confused. Suddenly, Eddie appeared, dressed in a suit with a suitcase. He announced he was leaving for Macau, having found a lead on Margot, who vanished 20 years ago. A conspiracy site claimed there was a magician's convention at the Kunlun Casino, where the elusive Russian wizard Koshai would appear, Margot's last investigation. Wang was stunned, realizing that was also where Miao Yin had gone. When Wang questioned how Eddie paid for the ticket, Eddie admitted he used restaurant funds. Wang tried to stop him, but Eddie resisted. In desperation, Eddie jabbed him in the neck with a needle, knocking him out. Apologizing, he explained he found the potion in Winona's room and left Wang Wang unconscious on the floor. Chapter 17. Outside the Kunlun Casino, a massive crowd of supernatural beings gathered for a convention. Among them, two hulking men in red and blue jackets pushed through the mob while ranting. One of them, Deathless, mocked how immortals constantly whined about their lives. He asked if his assistant Margot could hear him over the chaos, and she dutifully confirmed he was perfect. Deathless appreciated hearing it. Inside, Koshai the Deathless rambled to Margot about how great immortality was, celebrating humanity's endless inventions, food, battles, and romances. He proudly told Margot to emphasize in her notes that being immortal was the greatest. Koshgei advised that if anyone claimed immortality sucked, they should just kill them for their stupidity. Margot nervously agreed while he laughed, increasingly impatient. He questioned why they couldn't move faster, pointing at other shorter lines like the press, exhibitors, and advanced ticket holders. Frustrated, he grumbled about the delay and demanded someone hurry. Even a mummy impatiently complained nearby, needing to be on a Women in Sorcery panel soon. Eventually, they reached the grand entrance of SourceCon, a spectacular hall filled with bizarre creatures and ancient artifacts. Koshai muttered that he wasn't getting any younger, despite being deathless. Meanwhile, on a flight to Macau, Wang woke Jack, telling him they had arrived. Jack, groggy from sleep, complained about a nightmare involving endless videos from the New York Times. They joked about crossing the international date line and Jack's frustration about the time difference. Wang teased Jack about never actually visiting China despite all his supernatural adventures. Winona sat quietly, reflecting bitterly about her mother abandoning them and siding with a man from her village. She confessed she hadn't forgiven her mum. Wang tried to stay positive but noted Winona was handling the situation better than expected, considering the grim reunion ahead. She even talked about her twin sister, who was just her evil and opposite. At the Sorcerers' Convention, a woman from the audience pressed the panel with a sharp question, asking how they could host a Women in Sorcery event without a single female panelist. Koshai, the Deathless, awkwardly deflected, suggesting maybe someone there was secretly a woman or a shapeshifter, but his fumbling answers only made it worse. The mummy-like sorcerer sitting with him tried to joke that a lot of them were shapeshifters, but the dodge clearly didn't land well. Meanwhile, a strange figure dressed in a scarf and hat lurked, observing the panel from a distance. The disguised figure later approached another suspicious-looking group, cloaked and clearly plotting something. They discussed the impossibility of blending in for much longer, hinting at some kind of mission or infiltration they were planning against Koshai or the event. Back on the panel, Koshai rambled about his greatness, completely missing the tension growing in the audience. He continued bragging about his past magical exploits, while the audience, filled with sorcerers, monsters, and mysterious figures, grew more restless. Elsewhere, Jack, Wang, Gracie, and Winona prepared for their infiltration of the casino. Gracie handed out badges to the team, explaining that they were on a tight schedule and needed to blend in fast. Jack joked around, but Winona stayed focused, clearly still brooding about her family's messy past. As they entered the bustling, chaotic convention hall, Jack grumbled about how the crowd was even crazier than he expected, with every type of supernatural being imaginable packed into one surreal, noisy place. The young woman questioned why, in a convention about sorcery, there were no spells or panels specifically tailored toward women. Koshai interrupted her, boasting that he had magically enslaved women for 2,000 years, held an honorary degree in women's studies, and was therefore qualified to address women's roles in sorcery. He accused the woman of trying to silence him with fascist feminism. She insisted no one was silencing him, only asking for more authentic representation on the panel. Enraged, Koshai unleashed a magical blast, turning her into a doll, shouting, "Stop oppressing me!" While celebrating his victory, he noticed Margot was missing. Meanwhile, Margot tried escaping, but was quickly spotted and pursued by Koshai's men. Outside, Jack, Wang, Gracie, and Winona arrived at the Kunlun Casino. Gracie explained it was a twisted capitalist version of the mythical Kunlun, heaven of the immortals, built as a tower for the rich. They entered, ready to search for Eddie Lee. Lee. Inside, Gracie reflected with guilt, confessing that she had been the one who initially involved Margot in this dangerous world of exotic stories and human trafficking investigations. If she had known Margot would vanish for 30 years, she would have made different choices. As Margot struggled against her captor, Eddie fought to protect her. He sprayed the goons with a weapon loaded with holy water blessed by an Eastern Orthodox priest, managing to momentarily hurt them. However, the hulking enforcers transformed into monstrous, shadowy bears and cornered Eddie and Margot. With their menacing forms looming, the bears warned Eddie that he was not smart, and now they would hurt him. Wang, Jack and Winona confronted the bear creatures trying to detain Eddie, insisting he was their friend. The bears refused, enjoying the trouble, and began to choke Eddie. As chaos escalated, a casino manager rushed in, reminding everyone that fighting was forbidden on the casino floor. Koshai intervened, urging Yushi to throw them out, falsely accusing them of kidnapping his biographer, Margot. Jack countered, revealing Eddie as Margot's real husband. Koshai theatrically denied wrongdoing, flaunting a binding contract with Margot, forcing her to thank him publicly. Declaring his romanticism, Koshai agreed not to disrupt the event but challenged Jack to a gamble. Winner takes all, their lives, souls, and Margot's freedom. Jack confidently accepted, calling Koshai Comrade Corpseface and mocking him, while Winona anxiously called out Jack's name, worried about the reckless challenge. Chapter 18. Jack tried to stop the bears from tearing Eddie apart, declaring no one would get hurt while he was around. When asked who Jack Burton was, Jack confidently pointed to himself. Meanwhile, stepfather Yu mistook Wang and Winona for people he knew, calling Winona his other stepdaughter. He greeted her warmly, noting she was beautiful but not as evil as her sister. Wang accepted the compliment, joking that he wasn't as evil either. Stepfather Yu said Miao Yin would be happy to see her daughter again, while Wang, obviously high on Xanax, awkwardly flirted with Winona. Stepfather Yu then accused Koshai of serious crimes, reminding everyone Koshai was a council member expected to maintain high integrity. Jack mocked Koshai's credibility by pointing out a coke spoon around his neck. Gracie scolded Koshai for betting Margot, a human being, and Koshai claimed to be a feminist, to which Jack replied that thinking so didn't make it true. Jack made Koshai promise not to harm Eddie during their poker match. Koshai agreed. If Jack won, everyone, including Margot, would go free. If Jack lost, they would become Koshai's eternal servants. At the cashier's cage, Jack requested 50 grand in chips, shocking Gracie, who worried about his plan. Jack bragged about being a champion poker player, but soon realized he misunderstood the stakes. Koshai intended to fleece him for $50 million. Koshai explained that the tournament would span multiple casino levels, defeating players one by one until the winner faced the Immortals Council at the top. As Jack looked on, Koshai mocked him, warning he would need luck. Meanwhile, Winona encountered her twin sister, Whitney, who worked at Yu Shi's casino. Whitney revealed her loyalty to Yu Shi and ambushed Winona, attacking her viciously with a hidden weapon. But it wasn't an attack, it was a gift. Whitney presented her with a pack of Coughing Dragon cigarettes, explaining it had been her favorite brand from their relatives in China. Winona politely declined, saying she had quit smoking the year before and had stayed clean since. Whitney, feigning admiration, commented on the willpower it must have taken, while Winona replied that Whitney would know. A flashback showed young Winona being blamed for getting Whitney started smoking, though cartoons had also glamorized it. Winona acknowledged that it was a sweet gesture, albeit very uncharacteristic for Whitney. She confessed she tried to better herself daily and even punished herself with bamboo switches when she failed, joking that one should only say half of that sentence aloud. Meanwhile, at the poker tables, Jack and the others assessed their bizarre opponents. Each gambler was introduced with colourful commentary, a sleazy local, a creepy underground dealer, and more. Jack realised all 6 players, including himself, were fighting for a seat on the Immortals Council. The Storms group theatrically explained the rules of Texas Hold'em, blind bets, betting rounds, discards, and the importance of hand ranking. Jack listened carefully carefully as they moved through the phases: pre-flop, flop, turn, and river, while other players quickly began strategizing. During the showdown, players revealed their hands. If only one player remained after bets, they won by default, but if multiple remained, the best hand won. Full house beat flush, and Jack watched the action closely. One of the storms shouted a pun about making it rain and demanded laughter from the players, turning the tense competition into an even more bizarre scene. Jack braced himself, fully realizing how serious and ridiculous this tournament was. He stayed locked in an intense poker match while Winona tried to hide her frustration, urging him not to let a privileged brat beat him. Whitney teased her, asking if Jack was her lover, causing Winona to gag in embarrassment and backpedal on her words. Whitney, misunderstanding human relationships, asked if she needed to sleep with Jack for freedom. Winona sternly said no and questioned where Whitney learned such ideas. Whitney blamed the casino's adult pay-per-view channels, admitting stepfather Yu gave generous employee discounts. Meanwhile, Miao Yin confronted Wang, confirming rumors of his presence. She gracefully greeted him, and Wang awkwardly returned the compliment. When asked about their daughter, Wang mentioned Whitney was with her sister. Miao Yin invited Wang to dinner at the Immortals level. Wang agreed, hiding his nervousness, and popped a pill as soon as she left. At the poker table, Jack joked with the other competitors about their magical specialties. Some were voodoo practitioners, others were fluid sorcerers. Jack's clumsy jokes about race and magic drew mixed reactions, but the players continued. The zombie-like woman went all in, committing all her chips. Jack analysed her moves carefully, noting her strange body language. Spotting a mirror behind her, Jack realised she was bluffing. He called her bluff, slamming his hand on the table. The zombie woman screamed in rage and vomited green slime. Jack celebrated his win, calling out her weak hand. The casino staff quickly hauled the woman away, and Jack, sprawled across the table with chips around him, proudly declared himself amazing. Winona, stunned by Jack's unexpected victory, admitted she didn't think he had it in him. Whitney stood nearby, unimpressed. A mysterious old man, partially shrouded in mist, spoke up, explaining that Jack always meant well, but usually needed help. Winona demanded to know what he knew about Jack, and the man calmly said he had a way to help them out of their current predicament, but he would need Winona's assistance. Winona asked who he was, and Whitney quietly revealed that the man was a member of the Immortals Council. The old man smiled and said he wasn't surprised Winona didn't remember him. He explained that he returned to China in the 1980s when Winona and Whitney were just little babies. As Winona listened closely, the man revealed himself fully, removing the last shred of doubt. He was Egg Shen. Egg admitted he had been trying to expose Koshei the Deathless for a long time, but lacked support from Yu Shi and the other council members. Now, seeing the current situation, he said he finally knew what needed to be done. His plan was clear and grim. They needed to find Koshai's death and end him for good. Egg Shen's expression hardened with resolve. Chapter 19. Winona watched in disbelief as Jack managed to win the hand, admitting she hadn't thought he had it in him. Whitney pointed out Jack always stood up for friends, but needed a lot of help. Winona defensively asked what she knew about it. A mysterious man reassured her he had a plan to get them out of their predicament, but needed Winona's help. He revealed he was a member of the Immortals Council. As Winona asked who he was, he explained he once knew her and Whitney as babies before returning to China. Winona realized the man was Egg Shen. Egg Shen explained he had been trying to expose Koshei for years but lacked support. Now, he believed they could act. They needed to find Koshei's death. He recalled the legend where Baba Yaga told the knight Ivan Tsarevich that Koshei's death was hidden under a green oak tree, inside a purple chest containing a white rabbit that swallowed a golden duck that carried a brown egg containing a silver needle. Egg Shen revealed that whoever possessed the egg controlled Koshei, and breaking the needle would kill him. Winona asked what she and Whitney were supposed to do. Egg explained Koshei had reburied his death multiple times, but now, due to a deal with Yu Shi, it was stored in the upper level of the casino, restricted to the Immortals and their families. When Winona wondered why Egg couldn't retrieve it himself, he admitted that politically, one council member moving against another was dangerous. He needed Winona to do it, urging her to think of Jack. Just then, stepfather Yu appeared, reminding the girls to to dress up for dinner with Miao Yin and ranting about maintaining family dignity. After Yu left, Winona found a fortune cookie note saying, "This is your chance." The match intensified as Jack and his opponent continued their poker duel. Jack realized he needed to adapt because heads-up play was different. People tightened up under the pressure, betting aggressively on almost anything. Meanwhile, Winona scoped out the marked tree, searching for Koshai's hidden death. Whitney, disguised as Winona, joined the family dinner with Yu Shi and Miao Yin. Winona used the moment to sneak off with Egg Shen's map, determined to find the oak tree. Inside the tournament, Jack thought through the tight situation. His opponent remained stone-faced, and Jack knew he had to play carefully. At the Chai family table, Whitney nervously kept up appearances while Yu Shi and Miao Yin expressed parental pride and frustration, subtly mocking American customs. Meanwhile, Winona reached the marked oak tree in the garden and started digging with bare hands. Back at the poker table, Jack lamented the mental exhaustion of heads-up poker, but pressed on. As Winona dug deeper, she finally uncovered a buried purple chest, the first step Egg Shen described. She hesitated, realizing this was no ordinary heist, and the consequences would be dire if she failed. Meanwhile, Jack tried to stay focused, even as the crowd thinned and the atmosphere thickened with tension. At dinner, Yu Shi toasted their reunion while Winona quietly slipped away unnoticed. As Jack debated whether to call or fold, he sensed something was wrong but pushed forward. Winona opened the chest, revealing a frightened white rabbit inside, the next step in finding Koshai's death. As she prepared to handle it, the weight of their mission settled on her. Jack remained locked in the tense poker standoff, unaware that Winona's success was critical to their survival. Jack and his opponent fiercely raised, folded, and went all in repeatedly, neither willing to give ground. Jack, sweating and focused, thought about how they were like two punch-drunk boxers, needing just one slip-up to claim victory. Meanwhile, hidden figures prepared something ominous nearby. At dinner, tensions rose as Winona questioned Yu Shi's backstory, pointing out he was never mentioned until online communication began. Yu Shi glossed over his past, claiming he built his fortune later. Winona pressed harder, while her mother, Miao Yin, defended Yu Shi. Miao Yin confessed her unhappiness with her former husband, blaming his obsession with Jack Burton for their marriage's downfall and sharing her past trauma involving kidnappings and harassment by ancient wizards. As emotions exploded, Wang stormed off, overwhelmed. Winona accused her mother of hypocrisy, saying her father never abandoned the family, unlike Yu Shi. This emotional confrontation made Miao Yin leave the table in tears, causing Winona and Whitney to reflect on the mess, with Whitney sarcastically noting the Sichuan food was better this time. Back at the poker table, Jack and his opponent locked into a tense battle of wills. Jack joked about Trucker's ability to win staring contests due to dry eyes from endless driving, unsettling his opponent. Jack then suspected magical cheating when he saw ghostly visions of the opponent's parents, but the opponent vehemently denied it, shouting about destiny and dramatically pushing all his chips in. Jack called the bet. Although both players had a pair of kings, Jack's jack kicker won the hand. His opponent tried to take back his call, but the dealer refused, ruling Jack the winner, cementing his hard-earned victory. Jack Burton was declared the winner of the final mortal round of the tournament, proudly representing the United States. His opponent, frustrated, lamented that he lost to a mere high card. Jack comforted the kid, telling him the important thing was staying alive to fight another day. He promised to give a kick to the nameless character upstairs in the Immortals floor for the kid's parents. Guided by a tournament official, Jack was led toward the next round. Meanwhile, Winona and Whitney searched for the hidden egg. Whitney questioned whether she really had to help, confessing she struggled with human emotions. Winona sarcastically reassured her and lied that they were looking for their father, calling it a safety lie. When a guard stopped them, they faked being lost on the way to the powder room. As the guard prepared to help, Winona suddenly launched a martial arts move, knocking him out cold. The sisters made it to the green oak tree where Koshai's death was supposed to be hidden. As they discussed how to dig without a shovel, they speculated that their stepfather might have hypnotized their mother into loving him. Before they could continue, a terrifying demonic creature erupted from the tree, catching them off guard. Chapter 20. Jack Burton was welcomed to the Immortals tournament final round and congratulated for making it this far. Yu-Shi announced that Jack had earned the right to play for a seat on their council. Jack brushed it off, saying he only dealt in cash. Yu-Shi introduced Jack's opponents, Koshoi the Deathless, Egg Shen, and a mysterious British player whose name was deliberately left unspoken, Chemmed. Jack greeted Egg warmly, but Egg warned him not to expect any favours at the poker table. Chemmed's strange, threatening presence immediately unsettled Jack. Without warning, Jack sucker-punched Chemmed across the face, knocking him out cold. Egg Shen panicked, asking Jack why he did it. Jack explained that he had promised to send a message to the Nameless One, blaming Chemmed for murdering the parents of the Squirt. Jack's rash action was criticised as he was informed that physical assault led to disqualification. The blue-skinned Yu-Shi laughed hysterically, celebrating Jack's mistake, declaring that Jack's soul and the souls of his friends now belonged to him. Meanwhile, Winona and Whitney discussed Yu-Shi's suspicious control over their mother. Whitney explained she had observed their mother's mood suddenly shift to affection whenever she was about to leave Yu-Shi. Winona realised it resembled Koshei's manipulation of Margot, suggesting it couldn't be coincidence. As Winona stood under a suspicious tree, something began dripping onto her. Suddenly, the Mahakala demon burst out of the tree and attacked. Winona fought back, but was quickly overwhelmed. The Mahakala demon slammed her hard against a tree. Just before it could finish her off, Whitney shot the demon multiple times with a hidden pistol from her purse. Winona was shocked at Whitney's unexpected weapon, leading to a funny exchange where Whitney explained she carried it for protection against Winona, jokingly calling her the bad twin. Winona gleefully admired the burning chaos she helped unleash, while Whitney awkwardly praised her. As Winona waved a gun around dangerously, Whitney panicked, telling her to watch where she pointed it. Winona casually brushed it off, but Whitney insisted she had been made to do it. Winona, pretending innocence, denied everything. Their mother and stepfather, seeing the commotion, sighed over Winona's familiar antics, asking why she couldn't be more like her sister. Meanwhile, Whitney confronted her own guilt, realizing that perhaps she really was the bad twin. As she reflected, the girls discovered a buried chest under the tree, believing it contained Koshei's death. Whitney shot the lock open, but a white hare carrying the hidden egg immediately bolted. The sisters gave chase as Whitney unloaded shots at the hare. Eventually, a shot hit, causing a gruesome explosion. Ancient folklore proved no match for modern firepower. Covered in blood, they spotted the pin inside the wreckage, Koshei's death. Whitney grabbed the pin just as Koshei reeled in pain, yelling at Yu-Shi for failing their deal. Chaos erupted as Koshei demanded the needle back. Meanwhile, Jack and Egg Shen realized this was Egg's backup plan if Jack failed at the tournament. Back at the tree, Winona and Whitney fought to keep Koshei at bay. Yu-Shi tried manipulating Whitney, urging her to hand over the needle, but she resisted. Jack and Egg Shen broke free, with Jack tackling soldiers to rescue the girls. Mistaking Winona for a stripper due to her costume, Koshei snarked, while Whitney clarified she was the other sister. Winona then awkwardly tried to thank Jack with a forced, exaggerated attempt at romance, making Jack visibly uncomfortable. Koshei, the Deathless, raged at Jack Burton, accusing him of ruining the cushy life he had built in Macau over 30 years. Jack stood unfazed, joking that he liked seeing the good guys win once in a blue moon. Koshei vowed not to be bested by someone who smelled like diner coffee and string cheese, and conjured a deadly spell. Meanwhile, Whitney kicked one of Koshei's bear minions aside. Winona, calling Whitney the good twin, urged her to survive. Koshei launched a vicious death spell toward Jack's group, throwing the fight into chaos. As the enchanted needle, the source of Koshei's death, bounced away, Yu-Shi chased after it. It landed inside a Russian nesting doll. Unexpectedly, the doll was the woman Koshei had previously transformed, the same woman who had once accused Koshei of excluding women from the Immortals Council. She laughed triumphantly, declaring that she had bided her time inside the doll, waiting for the perfect moment to take her revenge. Without hesitation, she hurled herself and smashed through the window. Koshei screamed as he fell alongside Yu-Shi, both tumbling out of the fortress to their defeat. With Koshei's fall, his spell over the monstrous bears broke, revealing them to be harmless teddy bears. Margot and Eddie joyfully reunited, with Eddie promising to catch up on everything he had missed. When asked about the fate of Jack, Winona, and Egg Shen, Egg sheepishly admitted he had hastily used the death spell's casting radius to send them far away, without actually knowing where they ended up. Wang stood leaning against a tree, quietly crying when Miao Yin approached, gently calling out to him. Embarrassed, Wang told her to go away, not wanting her to see him in that state. Miao Yin reassured him, calling him her darling. Wang, frustrated, vented about how he couldn't compete with the wealth midget and was trying to change his flight back to San Francisco, but the airline app had frozen. As he struggled with his phone, Miao Yin softly told him that she wanted to go with him. Wang, surprised, asked if she was playing with his emotions, but Miao Yin sincerely confirmed her feelings. Meanwhile, Miao Yin revealed that long ago, Yu Shi had discovered a chime to control a Mahakala demon. Kusuke, learning of this, used it to help Yu Shi build the casino and later used dark magic to ensorcel Miao Yin even across the Pacific. Now freed from Kusuke's influence, Miao Yin confessed her love again, and Wang declared he had loved only her forever. As they embraced, Wang eagerly spoke about reuniting with their daughters, but his face fell when asked about Winona. Elsewhere, Jack Burton and Whitney fell hard onto the streets of old San Francisco's Chinatown. After knocking out an attacker, Jack made a quip about reporting the truck that hit them. The crowd quickly turned hostile, accusing them of killing the Hip Yi Tong leader. Realizing the street was Waverly Street, Whitney checked her phone and panicked. Egg Shen had sent them back to April 17, 1906, without any Wi-Fi or clear way home. Chapter 21. An elder's tale unfolded about the earliest days of the Chinese arriving in California. It all started with the rumor of gold spurting like geysers from the hills around the Bay of St. Francis. The promise of easy fortune drifted all the way to the Celestial Kingdom. The legend said that a brig named Eagle carried the first men of the East through the Golden Gate into Yerba Buena Cove. A ragged man on the dock trading for gold nuggets cheered as the ship approached. The first 3 Chinese immigrants, 2 men and a woman, disembarked, feeling fear at the strange, hardened frontier faces staring at them. Despite the fear, hope stayed strong, giving them courage that life here could be better than what they left behind. They quickly joined the local activity, bartering for supplies. The names of the men were remembered by history, but the woman's name was lost, even to myth. Regardless, it was stressed that even nameless, they must be acknowledged for their courage. The small group marched inland towards a rough frontier town. The narration reflected that these were the tiny seeds from which great things would grow. One successful prospector's story could inspire thousands, and from the humble beginnings of 2 nameless men and 1 nameless woman, an empire would eventually be born. Meanwhile, Jack and Winona stood ready, facing a mob of hatchet-wielding enemies in old Chinatown. Jack urged Winona to translate what the gang was shouting. Winona explained they were furious about Egg Shen's tampering with historical timelines. Winona nervously pointed out they had bigger worries, like surviving. The mob rallied, their leader demanding vengeance for their fallen warlord. They mocked Jack's hairy arms as perfect targets. Jack braced for the attack, and with a battle cry, Winona launched into fierce martial arts moves: scissor kick, tiger claw, monkey flip, and even a crushing move she jokingly called D's nuts, as Jack readied to dive in too. A Chinese warrior charged at Jack, screaming for the white barbarian to die. Jack braced himself for the attack, but the attacker tripped and accidentally killed one of his own allies with his sword. The surrounding men, shocked and panicked, believed Jack's sorcery was too powerful and accused him of enchanting their comrade and using the strangely dressed Winona like a puppet. They shouted to retreat. Winona, frustrated, said she could barely understand their accusations, but was sure they were insulting her agency. As the thugs fled, one vowed they would fight another day, while another gleefully looted Iron Shirt Woe's corpse. Jack called after them mockingly, telling them to bring more guys next time if they wanted to take on Jack Burton and his eccentric sidekick. Winona immediately corrected him, annoyed, saying she was not his sidekick. They were soon approached by a man in a suit and bowler hat, who thanked them for intervening. He introduced himself as part of the 6 Companies, a group working to protect Chinese immigrants from criminals like Iron Shirt Woe. He offered Jack and Winona employment, but Jack declined, saying they had their own problems. However, when Zhao mentioned that Egg Shen would be interested in them, Jack reconsidered, admitting they were low on cash. Zhao led them into a hidden underground section of Chinatown, long thought destroyed by the Great Quake. Jack and Winona marveled at the ruins. They entered a smoky den where Zhao woke up a disheveled Egg Shen. After some bribery to silence a protesting madam, Zhao convinced Egg to meet the travelers from a faraway land. Jack tried tried to explain the situation, mentioning that they came from over 100 years in the future. Egg, disoriented, grumbled about leaving sorcery behind, but Jack insisted they needed his help urgently. Egg remained slouched, uninterested as Zhao and the girl tried persuading him. When Zhao mocked him for needing backup, Egg shrugged it off, saying the days of him reveling in the strange were long gone. The girl offered him her phone, explaining it as a mini computer holding all of humanity's knowledge. Egg jokingly asked if it was like an abacus, before becoming intrigued by the strange device. Jack suggested it could give stock tips like in Back to the Future 2, only to be shocked there even was a second movie. He was comatose during that time. Egg played with the phone, fascinated by the beeps and flashing lights, unsure if it was real or just opium hallucination. The girl introduced Egg to a game app, but the phone died quickly. Annoyed, she realized her charger wouldn't exist for another century. Zhao sighed, admitting he had hoped Egg would be roused into action. He told Jack and the girl that convincing Egg would take time, and luckily, time was on their side. Zhao then led Jack and the girl through his block, claiming protection from the Tongs. They entered the Wing Kong Trading Company, where Zhao revealed that he and Egg Shen had come to America during the gold rush. Their brief prospecting days had led to honest business providing jobs for the Chinese community. Zhao offered to replace the girl's tattered clothes, but she joked her dad wouldn't even be born for decades. As they moved through the warehouse, a priest approached Zhao, thanking him for donating more food and clothes than the parish could handle. When Jack heard the priest call him David, he grew suspicious. Zhao laughed it off, explaining he adopted a Western name to make things easier for Americans. Then, Zhao formally introduced himself as David Lo Pan, leaving Jack and the girl stunned. A dark, monstrous shadow loomed ominously under their feet. Meanwhile, a powerful lightning strike shook Chinatown. A hulking, monstrous figure rose from the smoke. Death of Jack Burton. At a nearby bar, rough-looking men drank and joked, oblivious. Death entered silently, questioned if anyone was Jack Burton. When they shot, bullets passed through him and hit the others. Declaring himself as Jack Burton's death, he killed the ones threatening him. Then he walked off into the night, vowing to find Jack Burton as surely as death finds all. Chapter 22. The dark figure continued his brutal search, asking each man he encountered, "Are you Jack Burton?" Each time, when the terrified men responded or failed to, he violently attacked them. One after another, the victims either gagged or gasped in horror as the relentless hunt for Jack Burton pressed on. Meanwhile, Zhao, holding Winona's phone, asked if it came from the future, confirming he understood charge meant electricity. Winona, wearing a traditional outfit she found a bit too Mulan for her taste, thanked Zhao for it. Zhao offered to search Egg Shen's old magic tomes for a way to fix the phone. Jack, suspicious, told Winona not to encourage Zhao, joking there was no way he could do anything without Steve Jobs, to which Zhao, confused, asked, "Steve who?" Jack stormed off, ranting that Lo Pan was inside the church. He blamed the worst day of his life on running Lo Pan over with his truck, and insisted that his troubles hadn't stopped since. Winona tried to reason with him, but Jack insisted that living through Lo Pan's schemes was far worse than just hearing about them. As Jack plotted his escape, Winona argued that Egg and Zhao were their best ticket home. Jack disagreed, boasting about the universal solution for any situation: alcohol. Winona sarcastically praised his plan as Jack defended himself, saying he deserved a break after a lifetime of dodging monsters. He claimed their problems would still be there tomorrow, along with a hangover, which he was more than willing to endure. Later, Winona spoke to Zhao, who offered to help her influence Egg Shen to send her back to her time. She joked about seeing a butt coming from a mile away and referenced Kim Kardashian, though Zhao didn't understand. Zhao explained that the 6 companies were constantly under threat from forces trying to exclude the Chinese from America. Showing her racist posters and laws passed against Chinese immigrants, Zhao made his point. Winona was visibly disgusted, vowing her hatred for racism, though she admitted she made an exception for New Yorkers. Finally, Zhao asked for Winona's help against an anti-Chinese firebrand who was about to hold a rally across town. A racist rally gathered outside a building decorated with whist banners, where a speaker ranted against immigrants, calling them rapists and drug pushers. He accused elites of exploiting cheap immigrant labor to harm native workers. The crowd, holding hateful signs, cheered when he demanded an expansion of the Chinese Exclusion Act and elimination of birthright citizenship. The speaker insisted on stricter border enforcement enforcement and deport. After the rally, he gleefully handed out free whisk brand tobacco and lard to the supporters. His aides praised his speech, and he boasted that Chinatown would be cleared out soon. Dreaming of his new empire, he discussed plans to build Whisk Tower, a massive casino and dance hall. Suddenly, he was informed that a representative from the Hip Wee Tong was there to see him. The man paused to apply some moustache wax, then welcomed Ming Sek, his apprentice, accusing him of failing to eliminate Lo Pan and the 6 companies. Ming Sek reported that Jack Burton had killed Iron Shirt and that he had taken over the Tong earlier than expected, but also admitted Burton was difficult to kill, as Fancy Pants Dan had found out fatally. The speaker and his men discussed using a proxy to avoid backlash, agreeing to hire Shanghai Kelly to handle Burton discreetly. Winona, eavesdropping from the windows, realized the danger and escaped before they could act. The men planned to give Kelly Burton's description to ensure no suspicion fell on them. Meanwhile, Jack Burton visited a saloon built inside a grounded ship called the Arkansas. Jack marveled at the setting, and after some banter about his missing sleeves, he ordered a beer. He prepared to tell a story, unaware that men nearby eyed him suspiciously, hinting at looming trouble. At the bar, Jack demanded a beer, but the bartender mocked him, accusing him of drinking like a foreigner, and declared that in America they drink whiskey. Jack, slightly confused but cooperative, agreed to have whiskey and got a bucketful to start. Meanwhile, the rough-looking sailor pointed Jack out to his seductive companion, confirming he was the target. The woman approached Jack, flirting and claiming she could read his future. Jack humoured her, joking he was from the future and could fact-check her. She suggested they grab another bucket and head upstairs to check each other for lice, which Jack found very unattractive, but eventually shrugged off, ordering another drink for 2. As Jack carried the heavy bucket upstairs, he made a drunken philosophical remark about company keeping, though he immediately questioned how profound it actually sounded. Loudly proclaiming himself Jack Burton, he drew attention as he disappeared upstairs, unaware that danger followed. A dark figure, Death of Jack Burton, crept toward him. In the upstairs area, Death of Jack stumbled through rooms where odd, sometimes indecent activities were happening. As he kept shouting Jack's name, he encountered strange sights and couples, all while being tracked by Shanghai Kelly. Eventually, Kelly attacked Death of Jack with a weapon. He knocked Death of Jack out. The real Jack was too distracted by the woman cuddling him and the drink to realize the seriousness. Meanwhile, the assassin prepared to bag Death of Jack. Winona, having been searching for Jack through multiple bars, finally found the real Jack. She scolded him for his irresponsibility, warning that the same people after Lo Pan were targeting him too. Jack protested, but Winona insisted the safest place was underground with Eggshen. Before they could leave, the seductive woman revealed a knife threatening Winona. Winona launched a powerful flying mantis kick at the woman attacking Jack, knocking her out cold. Jack still tried to insist the woman might have simply been attracted to him, but Winona dragged him away, unimpressed. Meanwhile, on the beach, a bagged Death of Jack was handed over to sailors by Kelly and Gypsy Sue. The sailors, unable to spell the name properly, forged it and congratulated Mr. Burton on joining the crew of the Bark Jade Empire, setting course for Shanghai. Elsewhere, a man attempted a magic ritual using Jack's futuristic phone, invoking strange spells. Suddenly, a massive thunderbolt struck the building, scattering papers and books. Stunned, the man demanded to know who interrupted him. A shadowy trio appeared, mysterious figures cloaked in energy and lightning. They identified themselves as the Storms, responding with a booming demand: "Who dares summon the Storms?" Chapter 23. On a mobile screen, a documentation played. At the San Francisco Opera House on April 17, 1906, famed tenor Enrico Caruso performed Carmen to an applauding crowd. After the performance, he was treated lavishly, dining and drinking at a celebration before returning to his suite at the Palace Hotel. He fell asleep with a framed photo of US President Theodore Roosevelt nearby, one of his most prized possessions. Lo Pan was the one who held the smartphone belonging to Winona. He and the 3 Storms examined the device, with Lo Pan remarking that he could use it. Meanwhile, aboard a ship, a cruel captain blew a whistle and ordered the captured men onto the deck. He made it clear he disliked the situation too, but explained that he had to whip the reluctant, unwilling crew into shape. He emphasized that with their names on the ship's documents and the ship already a league out to sea, there was no escape. He warned that obedience would be rewarded with gentle treatment, but defiance would bring the wrath wrath of the lion's claw. When the captain asked if there were any questions, one ragged sailor stepped forward and asked if he was Jack Burton. Death of Jack, still weary and furious, pointed right back, declaring, "Are you Jack Burton?" Elsewhere, Winona forcefully dragged Jack away, furious about being treated like a sidekick. They saw a wanted poster showing both Jack and woman as targets of the Hipwee Tong. Winona, frustrated, ordered Jack to stay hidden while she went to handle the whist situation. Jack stumbled into a hiding spot with another confused captive, muttering about what was happening. Winona searched through the hideout calling for Dave, but found only a note and an old talisman. She updated Dave through the enchanted phone, explaining that she had spied on Whist. She learned Whist planned to use the Exclusion Act to deport Chinese immigrants without proper papers and tear down Chinatown to build a casino. Furious, Winona promised to help stop him. Noticing her phone charge, she excitedly asked how it happened. A mysterious figure replied, "Indeed." Suddenly, Lo Pan appeared, flanked by the storms, revealing he had used lightning to charge the phone and access its knowledge of future events. Winona noticed Lo Pan looked different and pointed out he was wearing a new hat. Lo Pan explained that the storms had helped him remember ancient knowledge he had long forgotten. Lo Pan declared that Little China would soon be free from Damien Whist's threat, and Destiny, aided by the knowledge he gained, would deliver Whist into his hands. Curious, Winona asked what would happen. Lo Pan revealed the date was April 18th, 1906. She admitted she flunked history, so Lo Pan ominously read from the phone that a major foreshock would occur just before a devastating event. Meanwhile, Jack Burton sat beside Egg Shen, wondering why Egg was always so glum. Egg sadly spoke of Chin, a girl he grew up with. Chin had insisted on traveling with him and Joe to America despite the dangers. Her name meant golden, and she believed she would bring them luck. Egg explained he once used geomancy to find hidden gold, which helped them at first. However, the polluted waters others used poisoned Chin. They were so focused on riches, they didn't notice her health deteriorating until it was too late. Chin died of typhoid, leaving Egg heartbroken, having lost his love without a chance to say goodbye. Jack comforted him, revealing he too knew the pain of a slow, painful farewell, watching someone he loved die inch by inch in a hospital bed. Jack tried to snap Egg out of his despair, accusing him of clinging to smoke and ghosts. Jack grabbed Egg's smoking pipe away, reminding him that Chin wouldn't want him to waste his life. Egg finally broke down, admitting through tears that Chin was golden. Jack, pleased, said all Egg needed was a jolt to his system. Suddenly, a violent tremor shook the ground. Egg recognized it as a foreshock. He shouted for everyone to evacuate the tunnels, though most of the people around him dismissed it as nothing serious, laughing at his panic. Meanwhile, a clock tower's minute hand shifted as the earth rumbled harder. With a loud tunk, the clock struck a critical moment. Then, chaos erupted. Buildings crumbled and collapsed as the massive earthquake struck San Francisco in full force. Lo Pan watched the documentation on the mobile. At the Palace Hotel, the earthquake woke Enrico Caruso. Startled, he grabbed his prized framed photo of President Theodore Roosevelt and fled the building in his nightclothes, vowing never to return to perform in San Francisco, a promise he kept. At the same time, Damien Whist, the racist man who had spent the night secretly with his mistress, realized the disaster's gravity. After hurriedly getting dressed, he rushed toward the Whist National Bank. His mind raced with fear of looting and anarchy as the city descended into chaos. The earthquake shook violently as Jack, Egg, and the others scrambled. Egg urged Jack to lead everyone out while he concentrated his geomancy powers to hold the collapsing tunnels at bay. Jack rallied the panicking crowd, telling them to flee as Egg summoned powerful magic to stabilize the ground. Meanwhile, Lo Pan, holding the smartphone, calmly counted down, confirming the quake matched the predicted 42 seconds exactly. He proclaimed that the Earth needed only that long to shake the city loose like a cobweb. Winona struggled but steadied herself. Looking over the devastation, Lo Pan explained that 80% of San Francisco would be destroyed and that this was their chance to eliminate Damien Whist's source of power for good. He turned to Winona and asked if she was with him. After a determined pause, Winona answered firmly, saying she was. Chapter 24. The Ship. Jade Empress surged through rough waters, its deck bloodied with fallen sailors. Among the wreckage, Death of Jack stood up, while others lay dead around him. He stood at the ship's bow, staring grimly at the burning city of San Francisco, devastated by the earthquake. The destruction was overwhelming, but Death of Jack remained determined, leaping off the ship toward the chaos. Jack found Egg Shen buried under rubble and desperately called out to him, relieved when Egg answered sarcastically. Egg, riding a monstrous centipede, explained that the earthquake had opened ancient fissures in the earth, unleashing ancient threats. Jack recognized the creature, joking about using raid to get rid of it. Curious, Egg questioned how Jack knew so much, and Jack hinted they were friends across time, intriguing Egg about the future. As Winona Chi marched through the ruins with the Three Storms and David Lopan, Jack scolded her for meddling. Winona snapped back, saying she was fighting for her people. Jack struggled to understand her, and Egg realized the figure leading them was indeed David. Lopan explained he had been cursed centuries ago by the first emperor of China and doomed to wander as a dream until recently, when Chang Dai, god of the East, allowed him to return to flesh. Lopan revealed that his encounter with Egg on the voyage to California had been fateful, but neither had known his true nature then. It was Winona's iPhone that helped the Three Storms recognize and reawaken him. Egg admitted he had felt empowered around David, but thought it was his own magic. Lopan confessed that Egg's love for Chin distracted him from his geomancy, causing his darker side to summon evil spirits, leading to Chin's death. Enraged, Egg called Lopan a monster. Lopan coldly explained that he had tried to change, but ultimately failed. He spared Egg out of respect for their old friendship, but warned him never to interfere again. At Whist National Bank, Damian Whist barked orders to save his money from the spreading fires as David Lopan arrived with Winona and the Three Storms. Whist recognized Lopan and taunted him, snapping his fingers to summon a gang of Hip Wee Tong fighters. Whist ordered Ming Sek to attack, criticizing Lopan while feigning regret over Chinese-on-Chinese violence. Lopan, unimpressed, unleashed a deadly blast of blue magic, completely vaporizing Whist. Watching the display, Lopan smugly stated that he held the greater power now. The Hip Wee Tong fighters froze, witnessing Whist's horrifying fate. One commented how things escalated too quickly into murder, and they fled in terror. Lopan then coldly turned to Winona, questioning her usefulness. As the Three Storms menacingly advanced on her, Winona nervously pleaded for a conversation, but Lopan declared the time for talk was over and seized Whist's riches with magic. As Winona was attacked, Jack Burton tackled her to safety, joking about the difficulty of finding the right building. Meanwhile, Egg Shen confronted Lopan, furious over Chin's death. Lopan dismissed his grief callously. Winona, Jack and Egg faced off against the Three Storms as Lopan taunted Egg, declaring, "You cannot kill what does not die." But Egg, furious and determined, refused to back down. Jack found himself locked in combat with a storm. As the storm tried to kill him, Jack desperately pleaded for time, mentioning his unpaid truck loans. At that moment, Death of Jack arrived. He overpowered the fighter, smashing his head together with another enemy's, defiantly declaring, "I am Jack Burton's death." Jack fought off attackers alongside Winona, but the chaotic battle worsened when Koshai's death spell, which had followed them from the future, struck Jack hard. Winona urged him to run, helping him stay on his feet. Meanwhile, Egg Shen struggled against magical attacks conjured by Lopan, who unleashed a brutal barrage of spectral weapons, promising no mercy this time. Jack and Winona fled, but Egg recognized a death spell targeting Jack, realizing its deadly nature. It was none other than Death of Jack. Death of Jack stood confused as Egg cast a spell on Lopan to make him look like the original Jack Burton. Death of Jack grabbed Lopan, declaring he was his death, and with a surge of energy, blasted Lopan away, shouting, "Begone!" Lopan's minions rushed to their weakened master, now reverted to a frail, elderly form. He admitted he had spent too much energy destroying the Shade and could no longer maintain his dream form. Declaring he needed to retreat and rebuild, Lopan vowed it was not over with Egg Shen. Later, Jack searched for Winona, who dramatically reappeared by smashing through a wall. Jack asked what she had been up to, and Winona cheekily admitted she had helped the fire by burning down the Hall of Records at City Hall to prevent the deportation of Chinese immigrants who lacked birth certificates. Jack was shocked, but relieved it wasn't personal property she destroyed. Winona passionately explained explained how destroying the records helped all immigrants stay in America. Jack ranted about hating the government, and together they joked about forming a legislature, executive, and judiciary to control the government's greed. Jack excitedly thought this was a great idea, not realizing they were just describing the US government. Winona ended the conversation face-palming, telling Jack he made her sad. Egg Shen decided not to return to the future, choosing instead to stay behind in case Lo Pan ever returned. Jack teased a spoiler about two green-eyed girls, confusing Winona. With some leftover gold, Egg considered buying the whole block, and Jack agreed the market looked favorable. When asked if they were ready to go back to 1986, Jack enthusiastically agreed, but Winona tried to object. They were sent 80 years into the future anyway, landing them in 1986. Jack celebrated, overjoyed at the era's fashion and technology, while Winona sulked, reminding him her home was 2015. Jack didn't care, embracing the nostalgia. Winona urged him to find Egg and return to her timeline, but Jack got distracted by a payphone, kissing it in reverence. Suddenly, she noticed a familiar truck. Jack recognized it too. Inside were a younger version of himself and Winona's dad, Wang. Jack realized Egg had sent them to the day everything had started. Chapter 25. Egg Shen narrated a historical tour describing how Chinese immigrants came to California during the gold rush, calling it Gum Shan, or Mountain of Gold, and how they built the Transcontinental Railroad before establishing communities like Chinatown. Meanwhile, the Jack and Wang from 1986 drove a large truck through the city. Egg's tour bus nearly collided with it, causing Egg to panic as the truck approached fast, blaring its horn. He screamed, and the scene cut to chaos as current Jack and Winona scrambled to intercept him. As Jack drove with Wang, Egg's tour bus nearly ran someone over and skidded to a stop. Meanwhile, in their truck, Wang urgently pointed toward an alley known as the Lords of Death, prompting Jack to steer the truck that way. Winona spotted Egg and urged Jack to catch him. They ran toward the bus, shouting at Egg, who finally recognized them. Egg joyfully invited them aboard, having waited a long time for their return. Inside, Jack celebrated returning to 1986, while Winona complained she was supposed to be in 2015. Egg explained he summoned them for a mission. Based on omens and readings, he believed Lo Pan was close to fulfilling a prophecy by marrying a girl with green eyes. They had to stop him. Egg tasked them with collecting black blood of the earth from beneath Chinatown and blew incense smoke on them. Winona asked if smoking it was legal, and Egg assured her the license was medicinal. He gave them incense of clear sight, claiming it would help them navigate the tunnels. He promised to send them to any point in history afterward. Jack reluctantly accepted, crawling into a manhole. Underground, Jack noted Winona looked different. He blamed the incense. They suddenly heard gunfire. Jack worried about his truck. Above, Wang and the 1986 version of Jack watched nervously, caught in a standoff. Then, a storm warrior let out a terrifying war cry. As chaos erupted above, armed fighters clashed in the alley. Wang drove through the crowd, and Jack urged Winona to move quickly underground, saying he remembered what happened next. Winona snapped back that he was the one in the way. As lightning struck and wind howled, a cloaked warrior arrived with dramatic flair, startling the others. Two figures wearing broad hats looked up as the newcomer raised his hand, channeling a crackling bolt of energy that surged through the skies and down into the tunnels, forcing Jack and Winona to duck for cover. Above ground, gunfire erupted as the cloaked warriors confronted a group of armed men. Spinning blades clashed with bullets, sending bodies flying in both directions. Amid the chaos, a desperate voice shouted to Jack, telling him to get out immediately. In the tunnels, the cloaked attacker suddenly leapt down in front of a truck, forcing it to a screeching halt. The sound of the Pork Chop Express's horn moved Jack emotionally, but Winona quickly pointed to a glowing trail ahead. Egg had told them that trail led to the black blood of the earth, the key to returning home. Elsewhere, Lo Pan stood watching ominously as the truck approached, his presence now known to Wang and his driver. Meanwhile, Jack and Winona followed the glowing trail deep into the tunnels. Jack grumbled about wandering endlessly, just as a monstrous creature leapt at them with a roar. Jack barely had time to scream before Winona delivered a devastating insta-kick that knocked the beast back. But as Jack looked closer, he recognized the creature. He called out to Pete, telling him they'd be pals in the future, trying to reason with the giant beast. Jack reminded reminded him of their weird bond, fart contests, truck stop casinos, and told him they were only passing through. Pete's eyes softened, and he declared Jack a friend. Jack confirmed the feeling, even calling Pete an ugly son of a bitch. But before they could celebrate, something roared again from the shadows. The 1986 Jack screamed as he rolled uncontrollably down a hallway in a wheelchair. A ninja ambushed him mid-roll and sent him crashing through a stone archway. Winded, our hero, the future Jack, stared ahead, only to find Pete, the massive beast, roaring from a tunnel entrance. Jack nervously tried to calm him down, insisting the chaos wasn't their fault and urging him to stay cool. Meanwhile, Winona came face to face with the monstrous centipede-like creature Jack had been dreading. She shouted in panic, calling it a bug thing. Pete jumped into the fray, fighting the creature. Jack proudly declared Pete liked him now, as Winona told them to focus. She had the black blood they needed. As the two monsters brawled, Jack yelled, "Let the uglies murder each other!" and cheered Pete on. Pete took the upper hand, slamming the creature, grabbing a metal rod and beating it senseless. He then stabbed the beast repeatedly until it dropped. When a phone fell nearby, Pete curiously picked it up. Later, Jack and Winona returned to Egg, declaring the mission a success. Egg began mixing the potion, but Jack realized he had lost his cell phone. Winona panicked. Her life was on it. Egg sensed the phone was with a demonic, hairy force. Jack tried brushing it off, but Egg warned them about the chaos that force caused in 1906. He refused to send them home unless they recovered the phone. Inside Egg's place, Wang told Jack that Egg was incredibly rich, despite appearances. As Egg prepared, Jack and Winona searched for a disguise. Jack admired a samurai suit, and Winona pointed to it, asking if he could fit. Moments later, a disguised Winona confidently declared, "I am a genius." The group reached Lo Pan's lair, disguised in ceremonial attire. Egg gave Jack a flask with a potion. A horrifying floating guardian appeared, prompting Egg to explain that whatever it saw, Lo Pan knew. Lo Pan, watching through the creature, sneered. He boasted that this time he would marry both green-eyed girls, sacrificing one and enjoying the other, uniting power and pleasure. Jack fired at the floating guardian creature, which quickly retreated. Egg Shen warned him it was futile, but Jack insisted on trying anyway. Meanwhile, Lo Pan began the wedding ritual surrounded by his followers, two brides in ceremonial dresses and the floating guardian watching. Winona, in disguise, whispered in awe about her mother's appearance, but Wang reminded her to stay focused. They needed to find Pete before he found them. Back at Egg's bar, the group prepared to drink the magic potion. Jack questioned what it did, and Egg explained it would let them see and do things others couldn't. They toasted to liberty, with Jack adding, "May the wings of liberty never lose a feather." Afterward, Jack, Wang, and the others felt unusually empowered, boasting a sense of invincibility. As the wedding ceremony continued, Lo Pan raised the needle of love. Miao Yin and Gracie Law watched anxiously, while Jack's group, hidden among the crowd, got ready to interrupt. Gracie called out to Miao Yin, declaring she carried the ultimate evil spirit. Lo Pan pierced his hand with the needle and shouted with joy. It was working. He was becoming mortal. One of Lo Pan's guards recognized Jack, attacking him. Fortunately, the confusion worked in their favor. Jack and Winona changed back into their disguises, and Gracie kicked the attacking creature in the groin to help Jack recover his lost phone. They prepared to flee again. In another chamber, Lo Pan celebrated his new mortality and declared his next act, destroying an ancient relic to appease the first sovereign emperor. Jack interrupted him, demanding a stop to the madness. As tensions rose, Jack declared, "Jack Burton, me," and prepared for a fight. The final moment came as Jack caught Lo Pan's own dagger midair and threw it back, striking Lo Pan dead. Jack simply said, "It's all in the reflexes." Jack and Winona returned from the dragon at the Black Pool, where Egg greeted them and hinted at unfinished business. While others celebrated at the Black Dragon, Jack sat quietly, feeling the weight of the moment. Winona asked if he'd return to the future, teasing him with modern perks like drones and kale chips. Jack admitted he had only one reason he'd ever go back, and it wasn't those. Winona, catching on, said he'd be leaving behind the best friend he ever had. Jack replied, "Makes two of us," and kissed her goodbye. Egg sent Winona back through time. She waved, promising to say hi to everyone in the future. Jack watched, contemplative, as the older Egg prepared to return to meet the younger Jack. Jack voiced his unease about being the vestigial one, the version destined for a coma. As he sat with friends, enjoying food and company, he confided that he'd always feel like a fake compared to his past himself. Suddenly, Jack felt himself vanishing. He shouted not to be zapped out of existence. Egg insisted he wasn't doing anything, though Jack felt something magical affecting him. Desperate not to vanish, Jack pleaded, and in a flash, he reappeared at his true home, surrounded by the elderly masters and his mystical allies. Relieved, Jack asked, "Now what?" Reunited with Wang and the others, Jack was startled by Tai Sui Laohu, a Tiger Man magician. They explained that Jack's soul was retrieved from the hell of no return and placed in a preserved body. Jack was overjoyed. No more hells, steam travel, or earthquakes. He hugged Wang, while Egg mentioned they preserved something else too. Jack rushed outside to find his beloved Pork Chop Express fully restored. Ignoring the giant turtle nearby, he was thanked for defeating Lo Pan. A massive turtle pledged gratitude, and Egg honoured Jack's aid in avenging his fallen loved one. Jack brushed it off, saying it was just another day's work for a red-blooded teamster. As Jack prepared to leave, Wang offered him a place in their new life. But Jack declined, saying Wang had fatherly responsibilities. They exchanged heartfelt goodbyes, jokes, and life advice. As Jack drove off, the crew waved, quoting, "May you live in interesting times." A giant insect burst from the truck, reminding everyone wherever Jack Burton went, things were bound to get interesting. Old Man Jack. Chapter 1. Jack Burton began by recalling all the unbelievable things he had witnessed in his life, from sorcerers and otherworldly monsters to mutated beasts and supernatural horrors. But nothing, he claimed, shocked him more than what he recently encountered. He described seeing a mustachioed waitress destroy a septic tank with sheer determination. But still, this new experience surpassed it all. He then revealed his current location, Palatka, Florida, a place he called heaven. It had everything a man could want: books, food, booze, adult stores, and even a blazing wall of fire he chose to ignore. Most importantly, thanks to crazy-ass magic, he never ran out of supplies. The best part? He had the entire town to himself ever since a mysterious event left him as the sole inhabitant. Jack embraced the solitude, quoting himself, "When you're man enough to be an island, life's a beach." Jack lounged on a balcony, drinking beer and enjoying the sunset. But his peace was shattered when he recalled how he had accidentally freed Qing Dai, demon god of the east. Qing Dai thanked Jack and offered him shelter as a reward. Jack panicked, realizing it was all a mistake. He didn't intend to help the demon rise. Awakening from a nightmare, Jack screamed. Shaken, he tried to brush it off with humor, but a woman's desperate voice crackled through his radio, begging for help. Jack joked that the voice sounded crazy, calling it a ghost voice, but the woman insisted she wasn't a ghost, just an attractive woman needing a hero. Jack dismissed her, preferring to spend the day reading, but she warned that demons would soon tear her apart. Her words made Jack pause as her dire situation clashed with his lazy comfort, forcing him to consider stepping back into the hero role. Jack initially tried to dismiss the mysterious woman's plea, telling himself to focus on his magazine and forget about the extremely attractive lady being hunted by demons. But as the radio crackled with silence, he couldn't shake the thought. With a sigh and a muttered, "Screw it!" Jack tossed the magazine and sprang into action. Charging through the firewall in his big rig, Jack narrated the situation like a pro. He called it a Chekhov's cat scenario. He didn't know what was beyond the wall, and by the time he found out, it'd be too late. But he didn't say a word. He just let his truck do the talking. As Jack barreled through supernatural flames, he reminded himself and the world that he wasn't like other men. He was made for this. His plan was simple: get in, grab the girl, and get out. He hadn't done the hero thing in a while, but he figured it was like riding a bike or wrestling a greased pig. It was all in the reflexes. Jack emerged in a hellish, ruined landscape. When the woman called out to him, he hesitated, unsure about continuing. She insisted, declaring again that she was extremely attractive and depending on him. Jack realized the wall he'd come through was gone. The woman told him he was in the hellpocalypse. Jack, confused, asked for answers. She explained that 10 years ago, the demon god Qing Dai had been unleashed on Earth, though no one knew how. After gaining power, Qing Dai merged the world of the living with the afterlife, creating a nightmare world ruled by Hellspawn. The living lived in fear, and the dead were doomed to eternal oblivion. Qing Dai ruled from his throne of skulls in San Francisco's Chinatown. Jack, utterly clueless, just replied, "Lifetime of practice." As Jack drove deeper into the hellpocalypse, the mysterious woman warned him that nothing in this place was what it seemed. If it couldn't kill him from the outside, it would try to devour his mind from within. Jack, insulted by her implication that he was mentally unarmed, fired back with sarcasm and pride. Eventually, he came upon green copper pillars and asked what they were. The woman explained they were a Chinese punishment for vengeful arsonists. Jack found it oddly specific, but accepted it with a shrug. He then found a giant hole where the woman claimed to be trapped. After a joke about a hole what, he secured a winch to rappel down, boasting it once saved him from the mud wrestling massacre of '85. Dropping in, he landed in what looked like a modern kitchen. He was greeted by a strange blue creature who introduced himself as Jack's eternal tormentor and informed him this was the House of Agony. Jack, unimpressed, criticized the hell's boring design and found the ice machine broken. The creature cackled and claimed it was all a trap. Jack's water would now only be lukewarm. Jack remained unfazed, and the tormentor revealed he had entered the hell of minor discomforts, filled with awkward social situations and mild irritations. Jack mocked the place, interrupting others with brutal honesty, embarrassing them, and breaking down doors with kicks. His lack of shame rendered the hell ineffective. Demanding directions to the next level, Jack proudly declared he needed to rescue his damsel. The creature, overwhelmed, pointed him toward a hatch. Jack opened it and began descending, casually noting he used his hand to turn the wheel. The creature exploded from stress while Jack descended, muttering about drinking lukewarm water and making someone explode. Hearing the woman scream again, Jack rushed to help, only to slip. Jack crashed headfirst into a new level of hell, landing on a demon dog and causing chaos. A demon horseman in armor confronted him, furious that Jack had interrupted his moment of creeping on a mysterious woman. Jack, shocked by the talking horse, threw a knife that missed, prompting the demon to mock his aim. Jack slipped again, but managed to recover. The armored demon picked Jack up, but Jack wriggled free, causing the demon to stumble and fall hard on the knife and kill itself. Jack, slightly remorseful, muttered an insincere sorry. He then turned to the woman he came to rescue, apologizing for the mess. But something was off. She wasn't blonde like she'd claimed. The woman turned and greeted him by name. Jack was instantly alarmed. She revealed she knew more than just his name, and as Jack began to panic, she confirmed his fears. A dark figure loomed behind her. Jack was stunned. It was someone he believed to be dead. The shadowy figure stepped forward and revealed himself with a menacing grin. David Lopan, in the flesh. The dreaded villain from Jack's past was alive and back, promising a sinister continuation to Jack Burton's wild, otherworldly journey. Chapter 2. David Lopan revealed himself to Jack in the flesh, stating he summoned Jack for a reason and wished to put aside their differences. Jack responded by sucker punching him with an Alabama death punch, surprised that the hit actually landed, since Lopan was usually a ghost. Lopan explained he was now mortal and needed Jack's help, but Jack wasn't having it. After killing a guard with a Tuscaloosa face stab, Jack slipped and nearly stabbed himself. Lopan stopped Jack mid-fall, prompting Jack to question his motives. Confused and suspicious, Jack assumed it was a trick and threatened to stab himself again, demanding his knife back. Lopan, exasperated, shouted that he needed Jack's help to save the world. As Jack mocked the idea, Lopan began to explain how things went to hell. He described how, when Qingdai ascended and conquered the world of man, he, Lopan, rejoiced. But when he tried to claim credit and a reward, Qingdai mocked his past failures, especially dying at the hands of a man with a mullet. Qingdai, ashamed of Lopan's service, cast him out and granted him the cruel gift of mortality, exiling him to the wastes of the Hellpocalypse. Now, stripped of power, Lopan warned Jack they had to leave before more threats showed up. Jack refused to join him, claiming he came for a blonde, not a lich. Lopan fired a blast of magic, prompting Jack to assume betrayal, but Lopan clarified it wasn't an attack. He was trying to protect him. As Jack looked around, injured and annoyed, Lopan told him bluntly Jack needed his help to survive this place. Jack begrudgingly muttered, "Hell," accepting the bitter truth of their alliance. David Lopan revealed that he knew how to kill Qingdai and claimed he needed Jack's help to save the world. He explained that gods weren't invulnerable and, as a former acolyte, he knew Qingdai's weakness. Lopan said he'd spent years preparing for revenge and needed to reach Qingdai's throne of skulls in old San Francisco's Chinatown. However, 1,000 miles of dangerous wasteland separated them from the destination. He requested transport, stating that Jack's truck might be the only functional vehicle left. Jack rejected the idea, refusing to let a former demon acolyte ride his truck. Despite Lo Pan's pleas to work together and bury old grudges, Jack booted him down a pit with a surprise Chinese karate kick and sped off, leaving Lo Pan shouting corrections about karate being Japanese. Jack, now alone, contemplated his life. He reflected on how driving a truck taught him to adapt, yet he still missed beer, music, and a buxom blonde. Just then, a fierce woman appeared and ordered him to halt. She questioned how he had a truck. Jack casually introduced himself and credited fate and a police auction for his vehicle. The woman, impressed, announced him to a nearby crowd as possibly the prophesied one. The crowd marveled at his business party haircut and the truck. Jack clarified he wanted nothing to do with weird cult stuff. The woman reassured him, no cannibalism or goat rituals. Jack asked what kind of weird stuff she was into. She smirked and replied, yes. Jack smiled, feeling he'd found his place. At a feast, Jack asked about the beast. The woman described him as a symbol of vengeance and strength who wouldn't accept defeat. The crowd cheered. Suddenly, a messenger announced news from the beast, grabbing Jack's attention. Jack continued feasting with the tribe, unaware that Queen Violence and her people were preparing to reveal their true enemy. She spoke of vengeance and their long wait for the beast's message. Jack enjoyed the moment, praising the food and camaraderie, but froze when a banner was raised with his face on it. The crowd recognized him as the one who burned the world. Queen Violence shouted to seize him. Jack protested, blaming a child's doodle for the confusion, but was swiftly knocked out. He awoke tied up above a massive green monster's maw. When told it was his death, Jack pointed out she claimed they weren't into eating people. Queen Violence clarified they only sacrificed evil people. The monster reassured him it would just chew and spit him out, not eat him. Jack begged them to listen, claiming he never meant to unleash Ching Dai and wasn't the beast. Just as Queen Violence prepared to execute him, someone yelled to stop. Lo Pan emerged, declaring that only he could kill Jack. Jack cursed his interference, but Lo Pan insisted he came to save him. For now, as Jack dangled above the monster, he panicked at the sight of a massive tongue approaching him. Lo Pan told him to stop acting like a baby and proposed they team up for the greater good. Reluctantly, Jack agreed, just as Queen Violence ordered both of them to be killed. As the tongue constricted Jack, an arrow struck it, freeing him momentarily. Lo Pan tossed him a knife and shouted, "Catch!" Jack caught it with a determined "Yah!" ready to fight alongside his old nemesis. Jack and Lo Pan stood surrounded by enemies as Jack asked if there was a plan. Lo Pan told him to close his eyes, then unleashed a blinding magical blast, temporarily blinding Jack. Furious, Jack stumbled while Lo Pan urged him toward the truck. As they fled the chaos, Jack griped about being blinded and how Lo Pan jumped the gun. They reached the Pork Chop Express, and despite his vision, Jack confidently started the truck, claiming he always knew how to get it going. Lo Pan, annoyed, pointed out the old hamburger smell inside. Inside the cab, they argued over who should steer. Jack insisted he could drive even blind, while Lo Pan questioned his competence. Jack dismissed the danger of the ocean of fire ahead, bragging about his past drives through worse conditions. But Lo Pan warned him this wasn't just fire. The ocean would target their minds, trying to break them from the inside. Jack shrugged it off with classic bravado. As they sped toward the flaming wasteland, Jack added his final note of confidence. "I'll crack a window." Chapter 3. Jack and Lo Pan continued their journey through the blazing plains of fire in the truck. Jack joked about the heat and his cheetah-like reflexes, despite still being blind. Lo Pan remained exasperated, but warned him to focus. A flaming, horned beast suddenly blocked the road, but Jack narrowly avoided it. Lo Pan begrudgingly admitted Jack's uncanny luck, though he called it infuriating. As they pressed forward, Lo Pan warned that the true threat of the plains wasn't physical, but mental. Suddenly, a vision of Miao Yin appeared, calling to Lo Pan for help. She claimed to now be attracted to weird guys with goatees. Lo Pan, mesmerized, leaned toward her, ignoring Jack's warning that it was a trick. Jack reached out to stop him, but Lo Pan resisted, clearly entranced. Lo Pan confessed his longing for Miao Yin. Jack, now with his eyesight restored, mockingly compared Lo Pan's looks to hers, rating him a 3 against her 9. Miao Yin reassured Lo Pan that she loved the weird floating, but vanished, exposing the illusion. Lo Pan admitted Jack was right and tried to use the moment as a teaching point, but Jack just just smirked. Suddenly, Lo Pan spotted something alarming ahead and gasped. Wang appeared, screaming at Jack, "Why?" as he floated mid-air with a glowing sphere. He declared he would remind Jack of his sins and showed a vision of a bar, signaling a trip into the past. Jack was then seen reminiscing about a conversation with Wang regarding his daughter's upcoming wedding. He teased Wang about not getting a bachelor party. Just then, Lo Pan snapped him out of the trance, but things worsened as they saw a massive skull-faced war rig pulling up beside them. Jack, shaken, pleaded for it not to be real, while the ghost of Wang sat grinning beside him. Jack and Wang continued bantering in the truck, with Jack mocking Wang's hair plugs and Wang joking back. Jack felt youthful and claimed the Pork Chop Express still ran like new. Wang was surprised it was the same old truck, but Jack insisted she still worked fine, despite some fuzzy memory about upkeep. Suddenly, Wang noticed something and yelled for Jack to look out. They nearly hit a black dog in the road. Jack slammed the brakes, but the truck didn't stop in time. The scene shifted back to the flaming wasteland where the real Jack snapped out of a vision and cursed. The hallucination twisted, showing demonic versions of himself and Wang laughing maniacally. Jack shook it off and rammed the demonic truck head-on. The collision was brutal, shattering the monstrous vehicle. A figure, Wang's ghost, was thrown into the air. Furious, he screamed at Jack, blaming him and the truck for killing him. Jack was stunned. Lo Pan yelled at him to focus. Then Miao Yin's ghost attacked, screaming that Jack killed her husband. She lunged into the truck, violently choking Jack. Despite the danger, Jack quipped about her attractiveness. As she snarled and shouted, "Die!" repeatedly, Jack yelled for Dave to get her off. Pan, focused and grim, realized this was part of the plan, but warned if not handled, he would drive straight into a hellmouth. The tension between Jack and Pan continued to build as the truck barreled forward with Miao Yin clawing at Jack's throat. Jack struggled to maintain control while being strangled, and Pan grew more exasperated by the chaos. Their wild journey across the wasteland had now turned personal, haunted by past mistakes, twisted illusions, and relentless supernatural fury bearing down on them from all sides. Jack and Lo Pan faced another supernatural interruption as a portal opened and Egg Shen appeared, furious. He yelled at Jack for ignoring his warnings not to resurrect Wang Qi. Jack, frustrated, asked if everyone he had wronged was going to show up now. Egg reminded them that there were consequences to using dark magic. Lo Pan mocked Egg's hypocrisy, while Jack admitted he knew what he was doing, but defended his actions as necessary. A furious Wang, now undead and corrupted, blamed Jack for everything. He unleashed a burst of power that sent shockwaves through the truck. As the chaos settled, Jack tried to play it cool, saying the details didn't matter, but Wang insisted they did. Jack then came up with a bold plan. He retrieved Egg Shen's red magical device and called out to Qing Dai with a proposition. When Qing Dai appeared, he warned Jack he was harder to kill than Lo Pan, but Jack clarified he didn't want a fight, he wanted a deal. He asked Qing Dai to bring Wang back in exchange for something. Qing Dai agreed, but his only price was to shake Jack's hand and call him friend. Suspicious, but desperate, Jack agreed. They shook hands, but the deal had painful consequences. Energy surged into Jack's arm, burning it. Qing Dai thanked him and revealed the catch. To revive Wang, he needed a bridge to the mortal world of flesh. Jack had just become that bridge. As the underworld lord loomed massive above him, Jack stood small but defiant, while his truck idled in the hellish landscape behind him. Jack and Lo Pan argued furiously as flames raged around them. Lo Pan furiously blamed Jack for bringing Qing Dai into their realm, saying even he, a disciple of Qing Dai for centuries, wasn't foolish enough to do that. Jack shrugged it off, saying he did it for his friend, and warned Lo Pan to back off before he broke him. Jack added that Qing Dai didn't even honour the deal. Wang was still dead. Lo Pan shouted that Jack missed the point entirely, accusing him of unleashing horrors beyond imagining, yet remaining untouched. As Jack tried to defend himself, Qing Dai reappeared, declaring himself a generous god and reminding them he had restored Jack's arm, fixed his truck and sent him to paradise, all because Jack was his friend. Jack teared up at the word, but Lo Pan, stunned, denied having any friends. Qing Dai insisted everything, the apocalypse, Lo Pan's death and humiliation, was Jack Burton's fault. Lo Pan was shaken, visibly torn. Jack urged him not to listen to the beefy octopus, promising Lo Pan wouldn't survive without him, but Qing Dai's whispers overpowered reason. "You know what you wish to do," he told Lo Pan. "Do it!" And with trembling hands and a look of conflict, Lo Pan hurled Jack out of the truck, screaming, "Die, Jack Burton! Die!" Chapter 4. Jack began narrating his version of events, insisting nothing was his fault. While walking with Lo Pan through a fiery hellscape, Jack rambled to himself, questioning how he went from hauling pigs to battling monsters in a gladiatorial pit. Lo Pan, confused, reminded Jack he'd been there the whole time. Jack ignored him and recounted how Lo Pan kicked him off the truck, despite Jack claiming it was unprovoked, though Lo Pan pointed out it was for causing the apocalypse. Jack narrated how his strength saved him from being thrown off, but while Lo Pan focused on crushing his hand, they both missed where the truck was heading. The vehicle crashed violently, sending them flying. As they tumbled through the air, Jack cried out for his truck and his life. They landed hard, but Jack was soon distracted by a towering demon. He excitedly called the creature Pete, claiming they were old friends from a sex dungeon escape. Lo Pan protested, insisting it was a demon, not Pete. Jack didn't care, until Pete attacked Lo Pan. Jack was relieved Pete had saved them, but Pete smashed Lo Pan into the ground mid-sentence. Later, Jack awoke, dazed, next to Lo Pan. A large mob had surrounded them, the children of the beast. They wanted both men dead. A warrior declared they were brought to face their sins by confronting the beast himself. Jack was unfazed, joking that Pete might be the beast. Lo Pan corrected him, saying Pete was just a follower. Jack argued Pete could still have managerial skills. From the balcony, the announcer declared their end was near as the beast approached. As the ground rumbled, Jack tried to begin his narration again, only to be immediately told to shut up forever. Lo Pan tried to convince Jack they needed to work together again to escape, insisting he still required Jack's help to cross the river of fire. But the announcer informed the crowd that the Colosseum was already beyond the river, rendering Jack unnecessary. Lo Pan paused in realization, then grinned wickedly, relishing his newfound freedom. He immediately launched an attack on Jack, ranting about being free of Jack's arrogance and smell of beef jerky. Jack mockingly told him not to knock the musk and reminded him he'd failed to kill him before. As the two clashed, a massive door opened and a shadowy figure stepped in, ordering them to stop. Both stared in shock. It was Wang. Jack was stunned and overjoyed, but Wang shut him up with a boot to the face. Furious, Wang said Jack had no right to speak his name after what he had done. Jack defended himself, claiming he saved Wang's life. Wang snapped back that Jack hadn't considered the consequences of bringing him back with dark magic. Lo Pan was thoroughly enjoying the drama. Wang physically overpowered Jack and declared that meddling with black magic had set the world on fire. Jack tried to defuse it with humour, but Wang wasn't amused. He slapped Jack again, and Jack prepared to retaliate with a Houston haymaker. Their fight escalated, with Jack slamming Wang into the ground. Meanwhile, Lo Pan began powering up menacingly, furious at being ignored, and shouted, "The men are talking!" Wang was struck by Lo Pan's magic, but he fought through the pain and declared his resolve. He thanked Lo Pan for reminding him of his purpose, destroying every foul being in the world, starting with him. Lo Pan, panicked, tried to change tactics and offered to team up against Qing Dai, but Wang rejected the idea, accusing him of lying. Jack cheered Wang on as he dove into battle. Jack then jumped into the fight with his usual bravado, yelling and striking at Lo Pan with all he had. He fired off an energy shot and charged forward, only to get kicked square in the face. Despite the setback, Jack cracked a grin, proud of his effort. After the fight, Wang held Jack at knife point and demanded he admit his role in the destruction of the world. Jack dodged accountability, joking that reading from a book to save Wang wasn't a crime. He tried to deflect blame onto Qing Dai, but Wang, devastated, simply stated, "My family is dead," leaving Jack stunned. Wang listed the people Jack had let down, Miao Yin, Winona, even Uncle Chu, and condemned Jack for hiding while the world burned. Jack insisted he didn't mean for any of it, and still saw himself as a good guy, but Wang disagreed. He said the Jack he once knew was gone and chose not to kill him, believing it would serve no purpose. Turning to Lo Pan, Wang promised no such mercy. Lo Pan pleaded to team up against Qing Dai and save the world. Wang rejected him too, vowing instead to save it from him. A magical battle erupted again, with Wang charging in. Lo Pan fought back furiously, but Wang struck a brutal blow, slicing across Lo Pan's eyes. As Lo Pan screamed that he couldn't see, Wang walked away saying, "Goodbye, Lo Pan." Jack shouted for Wang to wait and pleaded with him not to kill Lo Pan, but Wang, furious and resolute, declared he was done listening. Jack finally admitted the blame was his. Everything was his fault. He confessed that Dave was the only one capable of stopping the apocalypse Jack had set in motion. If Wang needed to kill anyone, Jack told him to kill him. Wang hesitated, then relented with a simple, "Okay." Jack tried to ease the moment, telling him not to be a jerk. As Lo Pan looked on, baffled, Jack was relieved but nervous. Wang agreed to give Jack one chance to atone. Lo Pan protested the fairness of being targeted while Jack was spared, but Wang made it clear both of them had atonement to make. Later, Wang told the group that only the three of them, himself, Jack, and Lo Pan, would head to the Throne of Skulls. His army would stay behind to avoid unnecessary risk. Jack, munching in the truck, sarcastically noted an army would be useful. Wang replied that if it was a trap, it wouldn't endanger anyone else. As they drove past ruined lands, Jack asked where they were. Wang replied they were in what used to be Arizona, once habitable, but not anymore. Jack began one of his signature sayings, but Wang interrupted with a warning. If Lo Pan didn't truly know how to defeat Qing Dai, or if they were misled, he'd kill both Jack and Lo Pan. Jack trailed off awkwardly, trying to come up with something to say, while in the sky above, an ominous image of Qing Dai loomed in a swirl of fiery clouds. Jack asked, "Are we there yet?" Chapter 5. Jack continued narrating, claiming he was back on the road to save the world again, this time from a demon sitting on a throne of skulls. Inside the truck, he and Lo Pan bickered, with Jack dismissing Lo Pan's warnings. Wang, fed up, reminded them both that if Lo Pan was lying about accessing the Throne of Skulls, he would kill them. Jack changed the subject to say he needed to relieve himself. While Wang stepped away, Lo Pan tried to confess something to Jack, startling him mid-pee. Jack protested the breach of privacy, but Lo Pan admitted he didn't know how to get into the Throne of Skulls. Jack immediately saw an opportunity. Maybe if he told Wang, it would earn him back some goodwill. Before he could, Lo Pan tackled him to keep him quiet. Wang noticed their struggle, prompting Jack to cover by claiming they were sharing emotional vulnerabilities. Lo Pan followed up with Jack's supposed love for beans. Later, Wang prompted the group to move. Jack and Lo Pan hesitated, prompting Wang to ask how to reach the throne. Caught off guard, the two stalled. A lightning strike and sudden thunder heralded the arrival of the three storms, as Jack awkwardly lied about needing to find them. Wang bought it, and the trio set off. Wang demanded to know where the three storms were. Lo Pan and Jack stalled again, until Wang summoned his monstrous companion, Yao Guai. The beast had been hiding nearby, and was trained to track creatures of great sin. He helped Wang find Jack and Lo Pan in the first place. To aid in locating the storms, Jack offered a red orb that the storms had once given him. Yao Guai sniffed it and raced off with incredible speed. Jack made a joke, while Lo Pan urged them to keep up. As Wang questioned the plan for dealing with the three storms, Lo Pan claimed they were once his minions and expected no resistance. He insisted that true leadership meant being able to defeat your own followers if necessary, something he claimed Sun Tzu taught him. Pete, the monster, ran straight towards the swirling tornado ahead, prompting Jack and Wang to follow in the Porkchop Express. Amidst the chaos, the three storms appeared within the cyclone. Jack asked what to do next, wondering where Pete had gone. Lo Pan attempted to speak with the storms, but they responded aggressively with lightning, ignoring his plea. Wang decided to take matters into his own hands and leaped from the truck, stating it was time for a direct conversation. When he identified himself as the Beast, one of the storms recognized him as the man who had previously killed him. Lo Pan attempted to regain their loyalty, but they mocked his past failure and reminded him they exploded from his actions. Jack tried to reconnect, telling the storms he didn't mean harm this time, and that they once fought when he looked younger and wore lipstick, but the storms didn't remember him. Lo Pan tried to assert himself as their master again, but the storms challenged that claim. When Lo Pan said they were created to serve him, one of the storms attacked, furious that he abandoned them after death and never tried to find them in the underworld. In the final exchange, they made it clear they no longer served Lo Pan. Now they were bound to Qing Dai. Wang launched an attack, demanding entry into the Throne of Skulls, but the three storms responded coldly. They declared their loyalty now belonged to Qing Dai, not Lo Pan, and said they would deliver Wang and Jack to Qing Dai for eternal torture. Jack tried to de-escalate, insisting they didn't need to fight again, but Wang stepped in, cutting the conversation short. Wang battled rain and lightning, declaring he'd already killed them once. Jack got paired with Wind, who insisted his name was Thunder and mocked him for being named after a sound. Thunder tried to switch opponents, but Rain refused, needing to avenge himself. Jack's attack sent Thunder flying, prompting Rain and Lightning to mock him for failing again. As Jack squared up for more, Thunder warned him to stop talking or face humiliation. Jack introduced himself with bravado and struck Thunder in the groin, knocking him out. Rain and Lightning burst into laughter at Thunder's defeat. Jack celebrated, but Wang told him to stay quiet as he continued fighting Lo Pan. Meanwhile, Thunder refused Jack's help, yelling he needed none, but Jack kept making fun of him. Jack tried appealing to Thunder's feelings, calling friends and family scams. Thunder began to reflect, mentioning how Rain and Lightning mocked him even after his explosive death. Despite that, he admitted he loved them. Jack found the sentiment too sincere and tried to rush him. Elsewhere, Lightning and Wang fought. Lightning mocked Wang's age, but Wang revealed he had nothing left to lose. Lightning taunted him about Miao Yin pushing Wang's buttons. Wang demanded to know how to get inside Qingdai's palace. Thunder, moved by Jack's earlier words, was about to reveal the way, saying it was simple before hesitating. Lightning taunted Wang by mentioning Miao Yin, prompting Wang to snap and brutally kill him with a neck-breaking strike. Thunder, enraged by Thunder's death, attacked with a massive energy blast. Jack tried to calm Thunder, but the enraged Storm Warrior struck him, sending him flying. Declaring vengeance for his brothers, Thunder swelled into his monstrous form, grabbing both Wang and Lo Pan in his massive fists. Jack, trapped in Thunder's grip, begged for mercy, fearing what might come next. Thunder hurled all three into his stomach, engulfing them in green goo. Inside, Jack thought he was dead, but Lo Pan clarified they weren't, only trapped. As the green fluid subsided, they found themselves standing before a grand, fiery structure. Thunder, now back in human form, announced their location with fury, the Throne of Skulls. Thunder declared that they would suffer eternal torment for killing his brothers. Jack, in typical fashion, deflected with humour, but Wang and Lo Pan remained grim. As Thunder raged about their impending punishment, Jack pointed out that despite everything, they had actually arrived at their destination. Wang grumbled that he would still kill them both. Jack could only sigh. Chapter 6. Jack Burton was chained up in a hellish version of Chinatown by a sadistic centaur wielding knives. As he endured the threats, Jack kept his sarcasm sharp, mocking the centaur for using his own knife and pointing out the lack of originality. Before the torture could begin, another figure descended, one of the demonic Thunder Brothers. He dismissed the centaur, who casually sauntered off to go be mean to people on the internet. When Jack asked about Wang, Thunder coldly informed him that Wang was in his own private hell, tormented by memories of his lost wife and daughter. Thunder, furious over Jack having killed his brothers, promised a punishment worse than death, but instead of attacking, he freed Jack, immediately raising Jack's suspicions. Still, Jack figured some tricks were worth falling for, even in hell. Meanwhile, David Lo Pan lounged in a grotesque boudoir, being ridiculed and slapped by a dominatrix demoness. Rather than recoil, Lo Pan embraced the humiliation with twisted pleasure. A warthog-like demon then attempted to break him, but Lo Pan boasted that pain and age were old companions. The demon responded by showing him true torment, a vision of an afterlife that was pure, unending nothingness. The experience shattered Lo Pan, who broke down, begging not to be sent back. Back in Chinatown, Jack sprinted through the warped streets, trying to navigate the inferno. He spotted a street sign but couldn't make out the writing, his age finally catching up to him. As he struggled, Thunder mocked him with a pair of reading glasses, rubbing in the cruel truth. Jack wasn't just trapped in hell, he was getting too old to fight his way out. Jack Burton continued exchanging barbs with his demon tormentor Thunder, who mockingly offered him a pair of reading glasses. Jack scoffed at the suggestion, claiming his eyes were still sharp, like a toddler's, but smarter. When he bent over to refuse again, his back gave out with a sharp crack. Jack collapsed in pain, realizing he couldn't move. Thunder hadn't even touched him. He smirked and told Jack the only thing responsible was time itself. itself. The years had caught up. "You're an old man, Jack," Thunder said coldly. As Thunder drifted away into the streets, Lo Pan was being torn apart by dark magic. A chilling voiceover mocked Jack's long life, accusing him of having nothing to show for it. It portrayed him as a broken relic, destined to die alone at the world's end. Jack protested, claiming he had plenty of friends. Thunder challenged him to name one. Jack mentioned Wang and Gracie. Thunder told him Wang hated him, and Gracie, she was long dead, crushed during Qingdai's rise. When Jack asked what she said before she died, Thunder delivered the blow. "Nothing. She hadn't thought about you in years." Jack stood stunned as Gracie's ghost appeared, whispering, "You're alone, Jack." Meanwhile, Lo Pan was overwhelmed by the warthog demon, who mocked him for all his power and wisdom, saying he was still no better than Jack. Lo Pan screamed in denial as the demon declared, "You're old, alone, and about to die." Later, Thunder boasted that he had finally succeeded where Lo Pan failed. He had broken Jack Burton, but Jack wasn't done. He insulted Thunder, hinted that Lo Pan might have been right to enslave him and his brothers, and provoked a furious strike. Jack smirked at the pain, then tricked Thunder into thinking a centaur demon had called him a chump, hoping to spark infighting and escape. Jack's final distraction worked. Thunder and the centaur demon began arguing after Jack stirred the pot. The centaur didn't take kindly to being called a chump, and Jack egged him on, claiming Thunder had insulted his work. The two demons clashed, giving Jack the perfect opening to escape. Thunder yelled at the centaur for letting Jack get away, while Jack smugly acknowledged how well his plan worked. Elsewhere, the warthog demon prepared to finish off Lo Pan, mocking his pathetic end. Lo Pan, in desperation, asked what Jack Burton would do in that moment. Inspired, he sucker punched the demon with a redneck sucker punch, followed by a kick to the groin. "Punt to the privates!" finally killing the beast with a brutal finishing blow. Jack and Lo Pan reunited amid the collapsing cityscape. They argued, as usual, calling each other names. Jack demanded they find Wang before escaping. Lo Pan resisted, but Jack insisted no one was leaving without Wang. As they followed Pete, the guardian beast, through the streets, Jack showed rare honesty, admitting he was running out of friends and wanted to fix that. They found a locked shutter, and Pete sensed Wang inside. A note nearby revealed the lock's combination, 0451. Jack put on his reading glasses to decipher it, much to Lo Pan's amusement. Jack defended himself, proudly declaring, "Nothing's cooler than reading." They unlocked the door and entered the building. Inside, Wang clutched the ghostly forms of his wife and daughter. Meanwhile, a magical apparition of Jack, standing with a book, sarcastically announced he was about to summon Qingdai. As the apparition worked, Wang's family was destroyed before his eyes. Screaming in rage, Wang turned to see the real Jack, calling him a bastard. Jack apologized again for accidentally causing the apocalypse. Wang furiously attacked Jack for lying about knowing how to kill Qingdai. Jack tried to defend himself, but the damage was done. The truth came out. He didn't actually know. Qingdai's forces advanced, and Jack, in desperation, reminded Wang that they were all each other had left. Just as things escalated, Jack had an idea and grabbed the book that summoned Qingdai, suggesting it might be able to unsummon him too. Wang didn't trust Jack, but Jack insisted he didn't need to trust him, just trust Egg Shen. Seeing Egg's name on the book gave Wang pause. He called off the demon attacking Lo Pan and agreed to hear Jack out. When the centaur demon reappeared, Wang charged to attack, but Jack intervened, declaring the demon was his minion. Jack asked if the centaur knew anything about the magic book. The demon casually confirmed it was in the Throne of Skulls. However, he warned it was placed just out of reach of its rightful owner for all eternity. Elsewhere, Egg Shen was revealed, still alive, standing before a flaming pit in the Throne of Skulls, reaching for the chained book while fire and skulls loomed around him. Chapter 7. At the entrance to the Throne of Skulls, the gatekeeper demons, a boar-headed and a horse-headed figure, were surprised that all the captives had been secured. Centaur with knives confirmed it proudly, boasting that it wasn't hard. Jack cursed him from chains, joined by Wang, Lo Pan and Pete. When asked if he'd be torturing them, Centaur with knives affirmed it with enthusiasm and pointed to his knives. Casually, he asked about Egg Shen's location, saying he wanted Egg to hear the others' screams. The guards Guards told him Egg was located between the Scorpion waterbed room and the Chamber of Flesh-Eating Dads. Inside the dungeon, Centaur with knives began the act of fake torture. Jack reminded him to pretend, but Centaur stabbed him anyway out of reflex. Wang remarked that's what Jack got for trusting a demon. When asked for directions, Centaur pointed upstairs and warned them to stay quiet. But suddenly, Thunder ambushed him from behind, driving a blade through his chest and killing him. Thunder declared that he had led them to the Throne of Skulls to prove his worth to Qing Dai. Jack pleaded for peace, but Thunder refused. He wanted to be Qing Dai's favourite and ordered the others killed, except Jack, whom he mocked. The group ran, dodging chaos. Jack kicked through a door, claiming he had 2/3 of a plan. They ended up in a strange room full of ghostly statues. Lo Pan questioned why they were listening to Jack at all. Jack claimed it was charisma. Soon, the statues, corrupted Yingling spirits, came to life. The ghost children swarmed the group. Jack panicked, screaming, but a dropped toy distracted the spirits. The team finally spotted a door labelled EGG and rushed for it as the ghosts closed in behind them. At the brink of the flaming pit, Egg Shen struggled to reach the book. Lo Pan noticed Egg was still alive and directed the others to help. He instructed Wang to blast Egg's chains and ordered Pete to catch him. Jack tried offering backup with a signature move, but the rest launched straight into the attack. While Wang and Pete fought through defences, Jack darted in to assist, though not quite as effectively. Once Egg was freed and brought to safety, he was surprised that Lo Pan had saved him. Wang clarified they were all there to rescue him. Jack cheerfully added his presence. Knowing Egg was the only one capable of killing Qing Dai, Wang and Lo Pan both admitted they needed his help. Egg agreed, now that he had his book back. Guards tried to intervene, but Egg had already taken the book and teleported everyone out. They escaped into an underground refuge where Qing Dai couldn't see them. Jack asked Egg what he'd been up to all these years, and Egg casually shrugged it off. In a surreal flashback montage, Egg appeared in multiple absurd scenarios, from running over monsters with a bus, to dancing under a disco ball, to fending off underwater temptresses and swimming in a pile of puppies. In their hideout, Egg revealed a plan to make Qing Dai mortal using a spell from the book. Though tensions flared between Lo Pan and Wang, Egg reminded them to focus on saving the world first. They agreed, despite the overwhelming odds. As Jack posed heroically with the team, Wang, Lo Pan, Egg, and Pete, he asked what his role would be. Wang bluntly suggested Jack stay behind, since his truck already did its part, and he was partly to blame for Qing Dai's rise. Jack protested, but reluctantly agreed to sit out. Angrily, Egg Shen explained that the ancient tome written by warriors who once defended the world from Qing Dai might hold a way to banish the Demon King for good, but when he tried to open it, he found it was locked tight. Frustrated, he handed it off. Jack stepped up confidently, telling everyone to leave it to him. He said that people probably saw him as a dumb old man, but when Jack saw a lock that couldn't be picked, he had a solution, then immediately tried to pry it open with a knife. The knife broke instantly, and so did Jack's confidence. Disappointed, Jack wandered off with the book, muttering that he needed to think about his life. Meanwhile, Wang and the others tried to figure out who might hold the key. Qing Dai was out of the question. The book was awarded against him. They speculated about his minions, but Lo Pan clarified that Qing Dai didn't use lieutenants, just himself and goons, like a startup. Thunder came up as a real candidate since he had a weird necklace, and Qing Dai might have rewarded him with the key for luring Jack in. They weighed their grim options: search for the key and risk death, or fight Qing Dai without it and die anyway. Jack suddenly remembered Thunder and claimed to know how to get the key from him. The others doubted him, especially given Jack's last attempt to talk Thunder down. But Jack insisted this time would be different and asked Egg if the teleport spell worked both ways. When Egg confirmed it did, Jack told them to stay behind to avoid escalating things, vowing to go alone. Jack was teleported back and greeted Thunder, who immediately ordered his men to kill him, but one of them refused, revealing he was still haunted by Jack's actions. Jack stepped forward, arms wide, claiming to be unarmed, and reminded Thunder that killing him meant killing the closest thing he had to a friend. Jack and Thunder walked alone down a corridor. Jack told him not to mistake this for emotional bonding and bluntly called him useless. Thunder roared back, deeply offended by being labelled Shemp, the unwanted third wheel. Jack hammered it in further, saying Thunder caused more harm than good and wouldn't be missed pissed if he vanished. Thunder furiously denied being like Jack, but Jack said they were the same, both expendable pawns. Jack pitched a deal, give him the key and they could walk away from it all. Thunder accused him of trying to kill Qing Dai. Jack admitted it. Thunder declared he couldn't betray his master, but Jack reminded him of the disrespect Lo Pan showed him and how he'd been sent to Explosionville alone. Jack argued they were just pieces in a bigger game and offered Thunder a chance to walk away too. Jack said he'd rather play cards than be a pawn and proposed they both survive for once. Thunder hesitated, then surrendered the key to Jack, admitting he was tired of all the fighting. Just as he did, Lo Pan unleashed a powerful magical attack that destroyed Thunder, shocking Jack. Egg Shen and Lo Pan justified it as necessary, calling Jack's rambling a good distraction. Furious, Jack called Lo Pan a killer and threatened him, prompting Wang to calm him down. Egg opened the book and located the ritual titled Ritual for Banishing Qing Dai, Demon God of the East. While Jack demanded to retaliate, Wang reminded everyone that Lo Pan had caused most of the destruction. Lo Pan sarcastically argued he only got blamed for one incident. As Egg read further, his face grew grim. When asked if the ritual was incomplete, he clarified that wasn't the problem. He found the exact instruction: kill the flesh bridge. The group stood in silence, staring at Egg to say something. Egg kept quiet, realizing that Jack, Qing Dai's flesh bridge, had to die. Chapter 8. As the group discussed strategy, Wang asked if the book explained how to kill Qing Dai. Egg hesitated, and Jack jokingly asked if it mentioned a handsome white hero. Lo Pan mocked Jack, saying no ancient Chinese manuscript would rely on someone who looks like beef jerky. Egg pulled Jack aside for a private conversation, but Lo Pan shouted one last insult, accusing Jack of dragging him down to his level. Alone with Jack, Egg admitted that during the decades he spent unable to reach the book, he had a realization. Jack was confused until Egg explained. Jack needed to die. Qing Dai existed in their dimension because of a flesh bridge, and Jack was it. Jack reacted with disgust. Egg clarified that their bond of friendship had unknowingly created the bridge. He handed Jack the book and a painless poison called Angel's Blood, leaving the choice to him. Jack appeared somber and apologetic, but then suddenly knocked Egg out cold with the book and said coldly, "I got no friends." Meanwhile, Wang noticed Egg had been gone too long. He and Pete went to find him. As they left, Lo Pan asked if Wang would try to kill him after Qing Dai was defeated. Wang didn't answer. They soon found Egg, badly hurt, and realized Jack had taken the book. Furious, Lo Pan blamed Jack. For once, Wang agreed. Jack stood alone in a summoning circle with the book. Inside the blood-sealed chamber, Jack began the ritual. He drew blood from his palm with a blade and let it drip onto the sigil. The spell activated, surrounding him with a red energy vortex, his blood shield. Jack called it neat and opened the book titled Bargaining with Qing Dai, preparing to make a reckless move. Outside, Wang and the others spotted the glowing chamber. Lo Pan confirmed Jack had sealed himself in with a blood barrier. Wang asked if it could be broken, and Egg said yes, but it would take time and caution. Lo Pan warned that Jack was the most unkillable man in history, not because of skill, but because of his sheer irrelevance. He called Jack the god of uselessness, a being so inept that nothing could stop him. The others laughed, but Lo Pan was deadly serious. Lo Pan outlined a breach strategy. Once the barrier fell, they'd enter in breach formation. Egg would immobilize Jack with a spell, Wang would stay close with his sword, and Pete would assist. Wang tried to move things along, but Lo Pan exploded in frustration. He ranted that he had conquered elements and slain kings, yet Jack Burton had always eluded death. Egg then explained that Jack's will maintained the blood barrier, and only focused hatred could bring it down. Everyone began venting personal grudges. Lo Pan raged that Jack knocked him out. Another said Jack killed his wife and daughter, and someone insulted the smell of Jack's truck. Inside, Jack invoked the rights of immortal friendship to contact Qing Dai. A glowing spirit eye appeared, demanding to know who summoned him. Jack calmly introduced himself and offered a deal. If he died, so would Qing Dai, but he refused to kill himself. He wanted to bargain instead. Right then, everyone barged in. Jack continued negotiating with Qing Dai, offering a trade. He wouldn't kill himself if Qing Dai brought Wang's family back. Qing Dai scoffed at Jack's audacity, but Jack stood firm, threatening to drink the poison. He admitted he was useless, but that meant he had nothing to lose. Just as he prepared to drink the vial, Qing Dai panicked, claiming he couldn't bring back Wang's family because their souls were in nowhere. Jack didn't care. He pressed on, but before he he could drink the poison, Ching Dai shot out an arm trying to grab him. Jack quickly kicked it aside and the blood barrier finally collapsed. Blinded by a burst of light, the team saw the miraculous return of Miao Yin and Winona. Wang and Pete ran to them in disbelief and embraced them. Egg was stunned. Lo Pan was overjoyed, until Miao Yin recognized him and kicked him hard across the room. Meanwhile, Jack prepared to go through with the poison, but Wang tackled him just in time. The vial splattered. Ching Dai raged, vowing his conquest had only begun. Miao Yin stormed off angrily after beating Lo Pan down. Winona, confused and furious, demanded answers. Jack, now bruised, shrugged it off, saying not to get weepy just because he did something heroic. Egg was skeptical, asking how Ching Dai resurrected them. Jack joked, but Wang was already smitten, clearly convinced it was real. Jack's group asked Winona and Miao Yin where they'd been. Winona remembered warm light and music, heaven. Egg Shen realized that Ching Dai had only pulled the hells of the afterlife to Earth, leaving heaven intact, which is why their souls still existed. But this meant Ching Dai now had a bridge to paradise. Egg warned that once Ching Dai regained his strength, he could invade heaven too. Lo Pan suggested sticking to Operation Kill Jack, but was ignored. He begged them to let Jack die to save themselves, but Miao Yin punched him and refused. Egg agreed that breaching heaven must have weakened Ching Dai severely. Despite this, Jack reminded everyone that Ching Dai was still a demon god. Wang insisted they'd handled tyrants before and could do it again. Jack hesitated, saying his only great feat was killing Dave back when he was younger. Wang reminded him they weren't alone this time. Winona enthusiastically joined in, eager to kick some ass. As the team gathered, Jack was asked if he was ready to save the world again. Jack gave his usual confident smirk and said, "Hell, why not?" leading the reunited team to strike a defiant pose, ready for the next battle. Chapter 9. Jack and the team prepared for battle as Egg narrated the absurd reality of their situation. Humanity's fate now rested in the hands of an old man, an idiot, a martial artist, his wife, their daughter, and Lo Pan himself. Lo Pan silently questioned where it all went wrong. Jack, ever inappropriate, offered to entertain Winona with hand farts, to which she casually agreed. But then a mysterious spirit approached Lo Pan, invisible to others, initiating a private conversation. Ching Dai, speaking through smoke and spectral hands, proposed a deal. Ching Dai called Jack a weak flesh bridge and offered Lo Pan the chance to become a god in exchange for becoming his new bridge. Though tempted by the promise of power, Lo Pan hesitated as his team awaited him. When asked what he was doing, he brushed it off and rejoined the group, denying the proposal. Egg explained their plan. Ching Dai was vulnerable but still dangerous. Egg would cast a spell to shrink Ching Dai to a killable form, but he'd be defenseless during it, needing the rest to protect him. Dave suggested killing Jack again to sever Ching Dai's link, which Miao Yin shut down immediately. Everyone agreed to fight, though Lo Pan tried to play it cool. As they prepared to ascend to the final battlefield, Jack expressed his appreciation for the group with a jab at Dave. The group entered a vast chamber to face Ching Dai. The god was ready, mocking them. A massive fight erupted. The team engaged Ching Dai's minions while Egg prepared the spell. Jack tried to fight a demon barehanded using a hidden boot knife, only to realize it had broken earlier. Shrugging it off, he remarked that such things happen with age. Jack continued his brawl with the red demon, trading blows and witty quips. As the demon lunged with his trident, Jack managed to unbalance him by pulling off his boot. The demon toppled, giving Jack an opening. Jack seized the trident and yelled, "Time to get forked!" But his dramatic charge ended with a misstep. He flung the weapon, lost balance and plummeted off the platform. The demon watched smugly, convinced Jack's fall meant victory. Elsewhere, Wang saw Jack fall and panicked. Egg Shen began his incantation, but one of the team members assumed Jack was dead and suggested retreat. Meanwhile, Pete tried to help Jack escape the lower level, but they were attacked by a resurrected Thunder who fatally stabbed Pete. Jack cried out in horror as Thunder prepared to strike him too, ignoring Ching Dai's decree to keep Jack alive. Thunder declared his revenge, blaming Jack for the death of his brothers and himself. Egg Shen, focused on the spell, urged the others to hold the line. Wang engaged in a sword fight with Thunder while Lo Pan backed up Egg. Wang screamed for Thunder to leave Jack alone and jumped into battle, glowing with fury. Meanwhile, Qing Dai unleashed a massive energy blast, declaring Egg was too late. Winona urged Egg to act quickly. Egg Shen shouted, "Something cool!" and unleashed a massive counterspell. Qing Dai, unfazed, declared the battle over. Suddenly, Jack and his friends found themselves in the aftermath of the blast. A blinding wave of power surged over the battlefield. Something had just changed drastically. Qing Dai initially believed he had survived the attack, but as the smoke cleared, the group saw he had been shrunk. Jack celebrated, thinking they'd won, but his joy quickly turned to concern when Egg collapsed. Though Egg tried to downplay it, he was seriously injured. Lo Pan insisted it was his duty to fight his own archenemy. The team readied to strike while Qing Dai was vulnerable. Amid the chaos, Jack apologized to Egg for past mistakes, but Egg assured him he had done more for the world than anyone. As Jack mourned Egg, Thunder attacked again. Jack stumbled upon the spellbook and in a desperate moment smacked Thunder in the face with it. Meanwhile, the team continued attacking Qing Dai. Jack rejoined the fight, charging at Qing Dai in a rage, but was easily swatted away. Frustrated but determined, Jack grabbed the book and began searching for one of Egg's spells. Qing Dai threatened him, but Jack declared he was reading because reading is fundamental. Qing Dai tried to destroy the book, claiming he wouldn't let Jack die before his own victory. Just then, Lo Pan announced he knew how to kill Qing Dai, but needed help. Lo Pan then launched a ruse. He faked trying to kill Jack, shouting dramatically while secretly signaling his plan to the others. As Lo Pan distracted Qing Dai, Wang misunderstood at first, but soon realized the intent. The team split up, preparing for coordinated strikes. Lo Pan faced off against an enemy, determined to end it. Winona reassured Wang with a quick exchange. "I'm going to help you kill that god." He replied, "Love you too." Jack then tried provoking Winona by calling texting dumb, hoping to get attacked and killed. Meow demanded Winona kill Jack to prove her loyalty, and Jack encouraged it, calling Winona a millennial scum to rile her up. Qing Dai remained skeptical, thinking it was all a bluff, until Winona hurled a sword straight into Jack's chest, shouting, "Eat sword, Uncle Jack!" and impaled him. Qing Dai caught the sword mid-air. However, Meow took the opportunity to stab him in his jugular, delivering a fatal blow. Qing Dai screamed in disbelief and was reduced to ashes. The group regrouped outside, celebrating Qing Dai's death and Egg's victory. Jack praised the plan, and they all reflected on how proud Egg and Pete would have been. Just then, Qing Dai's essence reached out to Lo Pan with a final offer to merge. Before Wang could speak to Lo Pan suddenly stabbed him through the chest, declaring it was something he should have done a long time ago. Everyone screamed in shock as Wang fell, and Lo Pan, now possessed by Qing Dai's power, loomed with glowing eyes, ending the moment on a brutal cliffhanger. Chapter 10. Jack found himself surrounded by wild monsters and indulgences in Palatka, Florida, but despite having everything he thought he wanted, he felt empty. He wondered how it had all come to this. Suddenly, Lo Pan appeared, mocking his silence and taunting that he could have shut Jack up long ago by killing his loved ones. Jack, wearing a crab hat, sat in quiet grief. Lo Pan recalled the moment he killed Wang, as Meow screamed for her father. Winona attacked, only to be flung aside, and Jack rushed to help her and Meow as the floor beneath them crumbled. He failed to catch them, screaming in horror as they fell. Lo Pan then exiled Jack to live in a twisted version of his hometown, where every bite of food would remind him of his failure. Lo Pan revealed he once considered friendship his purpose after becoming mortal, but decided it was crap for nerds, and announced he was going to kill God. After Lo Pan vanished, Jack was left alone, unsure what to do. That's when Egg Shen's ghost appeared, offering advice. Jack, skeptical, asked if Egg could fix everything. Egg explained that Qing Dai's power now resided with Lo Pan, and even Heaven's armies wouldn't be enough. Jack had to come up with a plan. Before Jack could process anything, Thunder reappeared, gloating about serving Lo Pan. Jack called him pathetic, which Thunder brushed off. Thunder revealed a torturous needle that would cause eternal agony and threatened Jack with it. Jack didn't flinch. Thunder tried several methods: the needle, a burning poker, thumb screws, even a feather, all of of which Jack barely reacted to, only giving mild responses like "ow" or "irritating." Thunder grew increasingly confused and frustrated at Jack's unshakable calm. Jack, broken and numb, told Thunder that torture was pointless now. His friends were all dead, and he felt nothing. Thunder taunted him with the memory of their deaths and the blood on his sword. Jack barely reacted until Thunder mentioned the beast, causing a flicker of emotion. Thunder insisted Wang's army wouldn't come, but Jack said they would if Thunder delivered the message. Jack then explained he had a new superpower, depression. It made him immune to torture. He demanded Thunder rally the army to storm the Throne of Skulls at noon, offering himself in exchange. Thunder scoffed, saying he didn't need permission to kill Jack. Jack replied that many had tried and none had succeeded, but if Thunder swore on his honor to do it, Jack would let him be the one to kill him. Thunder hesitated due to Lo Pan's orders, but Jack pressed, calling him out. Finally, Thunder agreed. They shook on it, and Thunder warned it would be a suicide mission. Jack accepted it, saying it was part of a greater plan. Jack granted Thunder permission to kill him, and Thunder snapped his neck. Jack's spirit awoke at the gates of heaven, stunned it actually worked. At the entrance, he met a keeper who asked his name. Jack proudly declared himself, but the keeper didn't recognize it. When Jack asked if this was heaven, the keeper clarified it was just the entrance. Jack, unimpressed, said the afterlife was usually more Asian and confusing. The keeper explained heaven appeared in a way that made sense to the individual. By Jack's logic, it should be a blonde woman with a D cup. Jack asked to be let in, but the gates slammed shut. The keeper told him they had to weigh his sins. Jack tried to stay calm as the process began. The first memory brought up was feeding a stray cat with a baby bottle. Hopeful start, but things quickly spiraled. Jack was exposed for lying from age 4, obsessing over girls and porn, and having a morally questionable life. Jack tried to steer the process toward his redeeming 80s exploits. The gatekeeper noted Jack saved the world in 1986, but also caused the apocalypse more recently. Flustered, the gatekeeper ranted that Jack's good and bad deeds cancelled each other out, making him impossible to judge. Overwhelmed, the gatekeeper's head exploded, leaving Jack to grab the key and declare, "This is fine." Jack continued through Heaven's Gate, only to find himself surrounded by chaos. As he marveled at the surreal setting, a giant fish-like celestial assistant greeted him and asked for his medal, which was required for entry into paradise. Jack claimed he didn't need one, saying the gatekeeper called him the best person he'd ever met. The assistant, unconvinced, went to verify the claim, only to discover the gatekeeper was dead. Jack slammed the door shut and tried to play it cool, but panic followed when the assistant declared, "The gatekeeper is dead!" Jack took off running as guards and angels shouted, "Intruder!" and gave chase. Jack tried to defend himself by yelling that the gatekeeper's head exploded on its own. While evading capture, Jack casually asked for directions to the waiting room. One helpful bystander pointed the way, past Junk Food Palace and the weird but consensual jungle. Eventually, Jack burst into a room where Wang Chi and others were lounging with halos. Spotting his old friend, Jack cried out, "Wang, I need you in a platonic way." Jack reunited with Wang and Pete in the waiting room of the afterlife. Jack asked about Miao Yin and Winona, but Wang said they hadn't arrived yet. He and Pete were waiting out of guilt until the whole family could enjoy paradise together. Jack mentioned Lo Pan through them during the fall, then suddenly remembered he had a plan to save the world. But before he could explain, the angelic pufferfish Esmeralda burst in, shouting, "Deceiver!" accusing Jack of lying about having a medal. Wang tried to help calm her down, calling her by name. He pleaded on Jack's behalf, saying Jack was his best friend. Though Esmeralda reminded him that rules are rules, Wang argued that paradise wouldn't be paradise without Jack. She relented, admitting he found the love loophole and gave Jack one day to prove he could behave. Jack and Wang stepped out, with Jack urging action before Lo Pan attacked. Wang told him someone needed to meet him first. Jack, impatient, ranted about saving existence. Wang finally revealed that someone had been waiting. Gracie Law, standing with Jack's old truck and a halo over her head, smiled and said she'd been waiting for him. Chapter 11. Jack reunited with Gracie and was overjoyed to see not only her, but also his beloved truck, which had ended up in heaven after falling victim to chop shops. He expressed regret about the things he hadn't done, hinting at unresolved feelings for Gracie. She gently interrupted to reveal she was married, shocking Jack. Her husband Blaine arrived, handsome, accomplished, and irritatingly perfect. Jack tried to mask his disappointment and greeted Blaine with forced politeness. Gracie hugged Jack and said she missed him. Jack admitted he'd messed up a lot, including getting her killed, but she forgave him, as did the rest of their friends. Marge and Eddie, who helped fight Lopan the first time, greeted Jack warmly, though he barely remembered them due to his age and head injuries. Suddenly, heaven was attacked. Explosions erupted at the gates. Jack sprang into action and asked Eddie to summon every warrior who ever lived. Eddie and Marge readily agreed. Jack rallied Pete and Wang, who stood ready to fight. He awkwardly asked Gracie to help too, but Esmeralda supplied her with a massive revolver. Gracie confidently accepted and quipped that she and Blaine had gone to a shooting range on their first date, making Jack sigh in regret. Chaos erupted as the demons breached the gates. Angels questioned Jack's involvement, but he denied leading them. Jack was spotted by Lopan, who revealed himself atop a monstrous army. As Jack called for angelic aid, they explained they couldn't interfere with the human matters. Lopan was still technically human. Jack despaired that heaven was full of rule-bound nerds. The requested reinforcements had arrived. Warriors from all of history stood ready. Jack addressed the warriors of heaven, introducing himself and urging them to fight one last battle to defend the afterlife from the greatest threat, Lopan. He reminded them they had fought for love, honor, and country in life, but this was their greatest fight yet. Despite his rousing speech, the warriors hesitated. One bluntly refused, saying he only came for cake. Joan of Arc also walked off. Gracie explained they'd grown too soft in paradise. Jack called them selfish and out of touch, but then had a rare moment of self-awareness. He recalled driving his truck into a supernatural fight back in the 80s, realizing the Chang Sing clan would surely still fight Lopan. Gracie and Margot offered to look for them. Suddenly, demons crashed through, overwhelming the defenders. Gracie led the attack while Jack told Wang he might have a way to bring back Egg Shen. Wang said it would take time, which they didn't have. As the gates cracked, Jack turned to the pufferfish assistant Esmeralda for help. Esmeralda agreed to help Jack in exchange for one thing, which he grimly accepted. Jack got in his truck and began his trademark monologue. As demons stormed heaven, he plowed through the gates, shouting, "Hell, I'll just do it myself." Jack's gamble led him straight through the hellish battlefield, crashing into the demon hordes with his truck. Esmeralda slammed the gates behind him, while Wang and Eddie shouted in disbelief. Wang warned that if Jack died, his spirit would take years to reform, but Jack told him to focus on reviving Egg and finding the Chang Sing. Jack was confident in his driving, claiming he could buy them time. Lopan ordered his minions to ignore Jack and bust through the gate, but Jack rammed into them, catching their attention. Lopan sent Thunder to stop him. Thunder leapt onto the truck, mocking Jack and reminding him he should have stayed in Florida. Jack responded with a quip about Thunder not wearing a seatbelt and slammed the brakes, hurling Thunder off. Jack then faced Lopan directly. When challenged to fight like a man, Jack responded he was more than a man. He was a man hauling 18 wheels of pure American power. But Lopan destroyed the truck, calling it garbage. Jack crawled from the wreck, bloody but defiant. Lopan taunted that when Jack died, he would be reborn into a heaven under Lopan's rule. Jack revealed that Esmeralda had barred him from returning. He had sacrificed his halo in exchange for weapons that could kill even immortals. He claimed he was now more dangerous without the chance to come back. Jack pulled out the enchanted gun, ready to end Lopan, but the weapon failed to fire. Lopan struck him hard, seizing him mid-air and gloating that Jack had always been a thorn in his side. As he declared Jack's end, broken, beaten, and alone, Jack smirked and replied, "Nah," defiant as ever in the face of death. As the demon army gathered before the gates of heaven, a massive shockwave tore through the battlefield. Jack's allies, Gracie, Margot, Eddie, and Wang, burst through the light, armed and ready. Gracie simply said, "Sup," as they prepared to join the fray. Lopan sneered, mocking Jack for bringing his dumb friends. But one demon panicked and warned that another army was behind them. Lopan turned, confused. The demon explained that they had been followed. An army had chased them through the throne of skulls and the tunnel to heaven. The ground trembled as a new force charged in. It was the army of the beast, led by Miao Yin, Winona, and everyone else. Miao shouted that no one kills her husband, and Winona added, "Or my dad." Lopan, stunned, whispered Miao Yin's name. She and the others rallied behind him. Jack grinned and told Lopan it wouldn't be that easy as the full army of heaven surged forward. Gracie, Margot, Eddie, and Wang led the charge. With weapons drawn and battle cries echoing, they stormed the demon horde, halo on their heads. Swords clashed, energy crackled, and war erupted. As Lopan held Jack by the neck, silhouetted against the chaotic backdrop, Jack Jack defiantly growled at him, "You're in big trouble." Chapter 12. As Jack stared down the battlefield, he reflected on the many ways he thought he might die, choking on a sloppy Joe or heart attack from a truck stop waitress, but not at the hands of a perverted zombie sorcerer god like Lo Pan. Still, he acknowledged he'd lived a good life and considered himself lucky. Lo Pan struck him, declaring that it didn't matter how many armies stood by him, he would still die today. Jack smirked and called in his friends. The army of the beast charged as Jack revealed his trump card, a gun loaded with god-killing bullets. Jack fired but was knocked backward by the recoil, landing on a large, sticky toad mount. Lo Pan mocked him, but Jack yelled that he was stuck. Lo Pan ordered his minions to fight harder. Elsewhere, Egg battled Hitler, while Wang and others held the line. Egg insisted they just needed to kill Lo Pan to break the demon bridge. Eddie and Margot took the initiative and rushed toward Lo Pan, ignoring Gracie's warning. Their formation broke, and Lo Pan seized the moment to launch a counterattack. Jack, still stuck, tried to rally his toad mount but got overwhelmed. Esmeralda warned Wang that she had bad news, really bad news. Meanwhile, Jack struggled with a demon on his back, and his mount took a hit to the face. Jack begged for help. Thunder leaped to set him free, but Jack dodged him. The recoil from Thunder's punch sent Jack flying, and he shouted, "Not today!" Wang panicked when Esmeralda revealed she was magically bound to obey any request, even from invaders. If Lo Pan discovered this, he could control her. Wang resolved to keep it secret, but impulsively shouted a wish for Esmeralda to kill Lo Pan and his followers. Lo Pan overheard and was amused. Realizing the pufferfish was a wish granter, he immediately exploited it, commanding her to create a mechanism to control all existence. Despite Esmeralda's protests that she couldn't interfere directly, she obeyed. She conjured a golden throne, the seat of authority, which would grant dominion over all worlds to whoever sat upon it. Lo Pan rushed to seize it, brushing off the ongoing battle and ordering his minions to handle the chaos. Jack rallied his team and charged to stop him. He tackled Lo Pan before he could fully settle on the throne. As they wrestled on the steps, Lo Pan groaned about Jack ruining his epic moment. Jack quipped about his catchphrases and mocked the villain's flair for dramatics. Both ended up seated on the throne, grappling for control. Suddenly, the story shifted to an old memory: Jack, Wang, and a disguised Lo Pan. In Jack's body, sped down memory lane in the Pork Chop Express. They ran down the real Jack, now in Lo Pan's body. Jack revealed he had outmaneuvered Lo Pan again. Lo Pan, now restrained, screamed threats at Jack, but Jack calmly explained they both had godlike power now and couldn't die. The only way to resolve things was like men, by talking. He'd beaten Lo Pan not through force, but brain-busting mind games. When Lo Pan demanded how Jack had always won, Jack reminded him it wasn't just luck, he had friends. Real friends. Lo Pan scoffed, claiming he had tons of friends too, but the others corrected him. Soldiers and slaves weren't friends. Jack and Lo Pan found themselves reminiscing on a balcony, with Jack saying he used to have everything he wanted, beer and steak, but pointed out that no man is an island. Lo Pan insisted he was an island with a beard, but Jack pressed further, asking when he was last truly happy. Jack recalled feeling happy just hours earlier, seeing Gracie again and watching Wang reunite with his family. Lo Pan dismissed the sentimentality, but Jack urged him to think seriously. Lo Pan couldn't remember the last time he was happy. Though centuries old and once the greatest sorcerer, his wish to be mortal had only left him angry. Jack admitted to ending the world once, yet was forgiven by his friends. Lo Pan doubted he'd receive the same grace for killing Wang, but Jack said even he did, and Wang got over it. They agreed fighting forever was pointless. Lo Pan finally gave in with a sigh and raised a drink with Jack. If you can't beat 'em, back at the throne, Gracie and Wang panicked seeing Lo Pan again, but Jack stopped them from attacking. He asked Dave to destroy the throne, cutting off Lo Pan's evil monologue. To everyone's surprise, Lo Pan agreed, admitting he'd been a turd, and vowed to try being less of one. He announced the invasion was cancelled and told his minions to retreat from paradise. Just then, Thunder appeared and struck, throwing a god-killer knife at Lo Pan, but Jack jumped in the way, and the knife struck Jack's chest. Jack managed a weak, ironic reflexes before collapsing. Gracie ran to him in shock, while Lo Pan recognized thunder. He apologized and obliterated him with an energy blast. Gracie tried to reassure Jack that he'd respawn, but Jack admitted that Esmeralda had removed him from the resurrection list. Egg confirmed no magic could undo a god-killing knife. Lo Pan suggested using the throne's power to heal Jack, but when Jack sat, nothing happened. He weakly muttered, "It's not working," and the others looked on helplessly. Jack, bleeding out on the throne, listened as David Lo Pan reminded him to think of his happiest memory to transport himself there eternally. Egg clarified that while Jack would still be dead, he'd be frozen in that moment forever. David thanked Jack, calling him a good egg, and Wang held back tears. Jack told him to save his crying for when his dog gets hit by a truck. Gracie tearfully said she'd miss him, and Jack confidently replied she should. Elsewhere, Margot thanked Jack for bringing them back to life. She planned to use the army of the beast to clean up the world. Eddie apologized for getting her killed. David approached Jack again, but Jack simply said, "Happy trails, Dave," and David returned the sentiment. As Jack lay on the throne, someone asked what memory he would choose. Jack, bleeding and smiling, told them not to worry. The memory was of a quiet dinner with Gracie, Wang, and friends. Gracie invited Jack to settle down with a bigger truck built for two. Jack considered it, walking away without a kiss, but then he returned, kicked the door open, and kissed Gracie passionately. The final moment showed everyone smiling as Jack finally embraced love. Marvelous verdict. And so, the tale of Old Man Jack comes to a heartfelt close. Though his body failed, Jack Burton found peace, not in glory or power, but in a memory filled with love, laughter, and the people who mattered most. He lived happily ever after, frozen in that perfect moment. But don't worry, Marvelous Long Reads isn't done yet. Jack may be gone for now, but Jack always comes back. You know it, we know it. The Pork Chop Express never stays parked for long. Leave your thoughts in the comments, your favourite Jack moment, one-liner, or wild theory. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, remember this: legends never fade. They ride into the sunset, kiss the girl, and smile like hell while doing it. That's Jack Burton for you. Long live the swagger, long live the trucker, long live the legend of Jack.